Pac-led Ambassador Aria's laughter echoes through the United Nations General Assembly, mocking Earth's primitive medical practices. Her statuesque form, adorned with bioluminescent markings on purple skin, commands attention as she delivers a scathing critique of human healthcare. Your pitiful attempts at medicine are centuries behind Pac-led technology, Aria declares, her voice dripping with disdain. The assembly hall buzzes with murmurs of discontent and indignation. Dr. Nolan Morales, a brilliant human surgeon, sits among the attendees, his jaw clenched. He's acutely aware of the stakes. Earth's reputation in the galactic community hangs by a thread. As Aria concludes her speech, her body suddenly goes rigid. Her eyes roll back, and she collapses on the podium, convulsing violently. Panic erupts in the chamber. Diplomats leap from their seats, shouting in various languages. Nolan vaults over rows of chairs, racing toward the stricken ambassador. He reaches her side, assessing her condition with practiced efficiency. His mind races, connecting symptoms to potential causes. The realization hits him like a thunderbolt. Aria is infected with a deadly Earth-based pathogen. We need to get her to Mount Sinai Hospital immediately, Nolan shouts over the chaos. It's her only chance. Pac-led officials push forward, protesting vehemently. You will not touch her with your primitive tools. One snarls. Nolan stands his ground. She'll die without our help. Earth's research on this pathogen is her only hope. Security personnel clear a path as Nolan and a hastily assembled medical team rush Aria to a waiting ambulance. En route, her condition deteriorates rapidly. Nolan works feverishly, using every technique at his disposal to keep her alive. At Mount Sinai, Nolan and his team initiate emergency treatment protocols. The next 48 hours become a brutal race against time. Nolan works tirelessly, pushing the boundaries of human medical science. Outside the hospital, the situation escalates. Anti-alien protesters gather, their angry chants audible through the windows. News of Aria's condition spreads like wildfire across the globe and beyond. A nurse bursts into the operating room. Doctor, we received a transmission from the Pac-led homeworld. They're demanding Ambassador Aria's immediate return. They're threatening severe consequences if she dies under our care. Nolan doesn't flinch, his focus unwavering as he continues his work. Tell them we're doing everything in our power to save her life. And inform the UN, her survival could be the key to preventing an interstellar conflict. As tension mounts both in the operating room and beyond its walls, one thing becomes clear. The fate of Earth standing in the galactic community now rests in Nolan's skilled hands. The coming hours will prove whether human ingenuity and determination can triumph where advanced alien technology failed. Nolan's hands move with practiced precision as he continued his relentless efforts to save Ambassador Aria. The operating room buzzed with activity, machines beeping steadily as the medical team worked in unison. Sweat beaded on Nolan's forehead, his focus unwavering despite the mounting pressure from both within and outside the hospital walls. As dawn broke, a commotion in the hallway caught Nolan's attention. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a world-renowned virologist, strode into the room, her eyes quickly scanning the array of monitors surrounding Aria's bed. Dr. Morales, she said, her voice steady and authoritative. I've been briefed on the situation. May I? Nolan nodded, stepping aside to allow Elena access to Aria's charts. Her eyes narrowed as she studied the data, her mind clearly racing. These readings, they're unlike anything I've seen before, Elena murmured. She turned to Nolan, her expression a mix of concern and curiosity. The pathogen is interacting with her alien physiology in ways we couldn't have predicted. Together, Nolan and Elena pored over the data, their expertise complementing each other as they sought to unravel the mystery of Aria's condition. Hours passed in a blur of hypotheses and experiments, the two doctors pushing the boundaries of their knowledge. Outside, the world held its breath. News helicopters circled Mount Sinai, their cameras trained on the windows of Aria's room. On the ground, the clash between anti-alien protesters and pro-alien supporters intensified. Angry chants and impassioned pleas mingled in the air as police struggled to maintain order. Inside Aria's quarantine room, a breakthrough was imminent. Elena's eyes widened as she studied a magnified image of Aria's skin under various light spectrums. "Dr. Morales, look at this," she said, her voice tinged with excitement. Her bioluminescent markings. They're not just decorative. They're an integral part of her immune system. Nolan leaned in, his fatigue momentarily forgotten as he absorbed this new information. "You're right," he breathed. "The patterns change subtly as her body fights the infection. If we could find a way to stimulate these markings." Their eyes met, a spark of shared understanding passing between them. Without a word, they set to work, combining their knowledge of human medicine and theoretical alien biology. They developed a treatment plan that merged traditional antibiotics with a specially calibrated light therapy designed to enhance Aria's natural defenses. As they implemented the new treatment, Nolan found himself spending more time at Aria's bedside. He watched, fascinated, as her skin shimmered with an otherworldly glow, the bioluminescent patterns shifting and pulsing in response to the therapy. Hours turned into days, and slowly, Aria's condition began to stabilize. The news spread quickly, reaching the Pac-led homeworld. Their initial demands for Aria's return shifted to requests for full disclosure of the medical procedures. Nolan was in the middle of adjusting Aria's treatment when a government official entered the room, his face grave. "Dr. Morales," he said, his voice low, "the Pac-led want the details of your treatment. Earth's governments see this as an opportunity to improve our standing in the galactic community. They're willing to share the information, but only if the Pac-led retract their earlier comments about our medical practices." Nolan nodded, understanding the delicate nature of the situation. He opened his mouth to respond when a soft sound from the bed caught his attention. Aria's eyes were fluttering open, her iridescent irises slowly focusing on his face. Without thinking, Nolan reached out, taking her hand in his. A jolt of electricity seemed to pass between them at the contact. Aria's fingers tightened around his, her skin cool and smooth against his palm. "You saved me," she whispered, her voice weak but filled with wonder. Nolan smiled, acutely aware of the cameras capturing this moment, broadcasting it to the world. "We did," he replied softly. "Human medicine isn't so primitive after all, is it?" A faint smile touched Aria's lips as her eyes drifted closed again. Nolan gently placed her hand back on the bed, his heart pounding from the intensity of their brief interaction. As he turned back to the government official, Nolan knew that this was just the beginning. The success of Aria's treatment had catapulted him into the spotlight, and the implications of this medical breakthrough were far-reaching. But for now, he pushed those thoughts aside, focusing on the immediate task of ensuring Aria's full recovery. Little did he know that this was just the start of a journey that would challenge not only his professional life, but his personal one as well, blurring the lines between duty and something far more complex. As the days passed, Mount Sinai Hospital transformed into a nexus of interstellar diplomacy. The corridors buzzed with activity, a stark contrast to the tense atmosphere that had permeated the building during Aria's critical condition. Nolan's world expanded beyond the confines of the operating room as he found himself thrust into the spotlight. Journalists hounded him for interviews, their cameras flashing incessantly as he made his way through the hospital. He deflected their questions with practiced ease, his mind focused on the task at hand, Aria's recovery. One morning, as Nolan approached Aria's room for his daily checkup, he was intercepted by a tall, distinguished man in a crisp suit. The man extended his hand, a warm smile on his face. "Dr. Morales, I presume? I'm Ambassador Williams Lee, Earth's chief diplomat for extraterrestrial affairs." Nolan shook his hand, recognizing the name from countless news reports. "Ambassador Lee, it's an honor." "The honor is mine, Doctor," Williams replied, his voice smooth and measured. "Your work here has potentially altered the course of human-pacal relations. I'd like to discuss the implications of Aria's treatment with you, if you have a moment." Nolan glanced at Aria's door, then back at the ambassador. "Of course. Let's step into my office." Once seated, Williams leaned forward, his expression serious. "Dr. Morales, the success of your treatment has opened a unique opportunity for Earth. The PAC-led are reconsidering their stance on our medical practices. We need to capitalize on this momentum." Nolan nodded, sensing the weight of the ambassador's words. "I'd like to propose a new role for you," Williams continued. "Earth's medical liaison to the PAC-led. You'd work closely with Ambassador Aria during her recovery and beyond, facilitating medical knowledge exchange between our species." Nolan's pulse quickened at the prospect. The professional opportunities were undeniable, but he couldn't ignore the flutter in his chest at the thought of working more closely with Aria. "I accept," Nolan said, his voice steady despite his inner excitement. Williams smiled, clearly pleased. "Excellent. Your first task will be to conduct daily checkups with Ambassador Aria. Use this time to gather as much information as possible about PAC-led physiology. And, Doctor," he added, his tone softening slightly, "remember the delicate nature of our position. We need to maintain positive relations with the PAC-led at all costs." Nolan nodded, understanding the implicit warning in the ambassador's words. As Williams left, Nolan took a deep breath, steeling himself for the task ahead. When he entered Aria's room, he found her sitting up in bed, her purple skin glowing softly in the morning light. Her eyes met his, and Nolan felt a jolt of electricity run through him. "Dr. Morales," Aria said, her voice stronger than it had been in days. "I was beginning to think you'd forgotten about me." Nolan chuckled, moving to check her vitals. "Not a chance, Ambassador. How are you feeling today?" As he worked, Nolan explained his new role as medical liaison. To his surprise, Aria's initial arrogance had softened, replaced by genuine curiosity. "Your species continues to surprise me, Dr. Morales," she admitted. "Perhaps there is more to learn from humans than I initially thought." Over the next few weeks, their daily checkups evolved into lengthy conversations. Aria shared fascinating insights about PAC-led physiology, revealing that their bioluminescent markings were far more than mere decoration. "They're a form of nonverbal communication," she explained one day, her skin pulsing with gentle blue light. "They convey our emotions, our health status. It's as natural to us as speaking is to you." Nolan listened enraptured as he made notes. Each revelation opened new avenues of research, pushing the boundaries of what they thought possible in interspecies medicine. As Aria's strength returned, Nolan suggested short walks around the hospital to aid her recovery. During these excursions, Aria witnessed humanity in its rawest form. She saw a young child comforting a sick parent, elderly couples supporting each other through grueling treatments, and the unwavering dedication of the hospital staff. One day, as they passed the pediatric ward, Aria paused, her gaze fixed on a small human girl drawing colorful pictures for the other patients. "Such resilience," Aria murmured, her skin shimmering with a soft pink glow that Nolan had come to associate with wonder. "Even in the face of illness, they find joy." Nolan nodded, feeling a swell of pride for his species. "It's one of our greatest strengths," he said softly. As they continued their walk, Nolan became acutely aware of the changing dynamic between them. The once haughty ambassador now looked at him with something akin to admiration, perhaps even affection. Her bioluminescent patterns seemed to pulse more vibrantly in his presence, a fact that both thrilled and terrified him. Their growing closeness didn't go unnoticed. Dr. Elena Vasquez, now head of the hospital's new xenobiology department, gave Nolan a knowing look as they collaborated on documenting Aria's treatment. "Be careful, Nolan," she warned one evening as they pored over data. "The line between professional interest and personal feelings can blur easily in situations like this." Nolan nodded, acknowledging the truth in her words. But as he watched Aria's skin shimmer with patterns he was beginning to understand, he wondered if it was already too late for caution. The world beyond the hospital walls continued to churn with activity. News of Aria's recovery had sparked a media frenzy, with journalists camping outside the hospital, desperate for any scrap of information. Nolan found himself thrust into the limelight, his face splashed across newspapers and television screens worldwide. As Aria's discharge date loomed closer, Nolan felt a growing sense of urgency. The thought of her leaving Earth, of ending their daily interactions, left him with a hollow feeling in the pit of his stomach. He knew he had to act, to find a way to extend their time together. One evening, as the setting sun cast a warm glow over Aria's room, Nolan broached the subject. "Ambassador," he began, his heart racing, "I'd like to propose an extended stay on Earth for you. For medical reasons, of course. We still have so much to learn about your physiology, and the potential for furthering interspecies medical cooperation is immense." Aria's skin pulsed with a pattern Nolan hadn't seen before, a swirling mix of blues and purples. She regarded him silently for a long moment, her iridescent eyes unreadable. "I will consider your proposal, Dr. Morales," she said finally, her voice soft. "There is indeed much still to explore here on Earth." The air between them seemed to crackle with unspoken possibilities. Nolan opened his mouth to respond when a commotion in the hallway caught their attention. Security guards rushed past the door, their voices urgent. Nolan's communicator buzzed with an alert. A group of human extremists had made threats against Aria and the hospital. The delicate peace they had been nurturing was suddenly under threat, and Nolan realized that his role had expanded once again. He was no longer just Aria's doctor or Earth's medical liaison. He had become her protector as well. As alarms blared and security protocols activated, Nolan moved closer to Aria's bed, his body tense for action. Aria's skin pulsed with rapid patterns of red and orange, betraying her anxiety. "Don't worry," Nolan said, his voice low and determined. "I won't let anything happen to you." Aria's hand found his, her cool fingers intertwining with his own. The contact sent a jolt through Nolan's body, and he knew in that moment that everything had changed. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Together. As the alarms continued to blare, Nolan felt a surge of protectiveness wash over him. "We need to move you to a safer location," he said, his voice low and urgent. "Can you stand?" Aria nodded, her skin pulsing with a mix of anxiety and drive. With Nolan's support, she slowly rose from the bed, her legs unsteady after days of inactivity. They made their way to the door, Nolan's arm around her waist, providing both physical and emotional support. As they stepped into the corridor, they were met by a flurry of activity. Hospital staff rushed past, their faces etched with concern. Security guards barked orders into their radios, coordinating their response to the threat. Dr. Elena Vasquez appeared at their side, her face grim. "Nolan, we need to get Aria to a secure area immediately. The situation is escalating." They moved swiftly through the hospital, Nolan acutely aware of Aria's labored breathing. Her recent recovery made her vulnerable, and the stress of the situation was taking its toll. As they rounded a corner, they nearly collided with Ambassador Williamsley. "Dr. Morales, Ambassador Aria," Lee said, his usual composure slightly shaken. "We have a plan to ensure your safety. There's a secure medical facility outside the city where we can continue Aria's treatment and research. Nolan nodded, relief washing over him at the prospect of a safe haven for Arya. However, as the days passed and Arya's discharge date approached, he found himself increasingly conflicted. The thought of her leaving Earth left him with a sense of emptiness he couldn't quite explain. During one of their final checkups, Nolan couldn't help but voice his concerns. "Ambassador," he began, his heart racing, "I believe it would be beneficial for you to extend your stay on Earth. There's still so much we could learn about pack-led physiology, and the potential for advancing interspecies medical cooperation is immense." Arya regarded him silently, her iridescent eyes unreadable. Her skin pulsed with a pattern Nolan had never seen before, a swirling mix of blues and purples. The air between them seemed to crackle with unspoken tension. Before Arya could respond, Dr. Vasquez entered the room. She took in the scene before her eyes narrowing slightly as she noticed the intensity of their gazes. "Nolan," she said, her voice carrying a note of warning, "a word, please?" In the hallway, Elena's expression was grave. "Be careful, Nolan. I've seen the way you look at her. Getting involved with Arya could have serious consequences for your career and Earth's diplomatic standing." Nolan opened his mouth to protest, but the words died on his lips. He knew Elena was right, but he couldn't deny the growing attraction he felt towards Arya. As he returned to the room, Nolan found Arya standing by the window, her skin shimmering with a soft, pulsating glow. She turned to face him, and in that moment, all his reservations melted away. He stepped closer, drawn by an irresistible force. Arya's bioluminescent markings intensified, patterns of attraction clear even to Nolan's untrained eye. Without thinking, he leaned in, their lips meeting in a tentative yet passionate kiss. The contact sent a jolt through his body, unlike anything he had ever experienced. The moment was shattered by a gasp from the doorway. They broke apart to find Elena standing there, her eyes wide with shock. Before anyone could speak, alarms began blaring throughout the hospital. "Security breach," a voice announced over the intercom. "All personnel initiate emergency protocols." Nolan's training kicked in immediately. He grabbed Arya's hand, his mind racing. "We need to move now." As they hurried down the corridor, they could hear the sounds of chaos erupting around them. The hospital's power flickered ominously, plunging them into intermittent darkness. Emergency generators kicked in, casting an eerie glow over the scene. "This way," Elena called, leading them towards a service elevator. "We have a secure transport waiting in the underground parking area." As they descended, Nolan could feel Arya trembling beside him. Her skin pulsed with rapid patterns of red and orange, betraying her fear. He squeezed her hand reassuringly, silently vowing to protect her at all costs. The elevator doors opened to reveal a scene of controlled chaos. Hospital security clashed with armed intruders, the sound of gunfire echoing through the cavernous space. Nolan instinctively positioned himself in front of Arya, shielding her with his body. "There!" Elena pointed towards a sleek, high-tech vehicle surrounded by a protective detail. The medical transport. They made a dash for the vehicle, Nolan supporting Arya's weakened frame. Just as they reached the transport, a group of extremists rounded the corner, weapons raised. Time seemed to slow as Nolan saw the threat, his body moving on pure instinct. He pushed Arya towards the open door of the transport, placing himself directly in the line of fire. As he braced for impact, a blur of motion caught his eye. A tall, muscular man in a security uniform appeared, his movements precise and deadly. In a matter of seconds, he had disarmed and neutralized the attackers. "Captain Marcus Steele." The man introduced himself, his voice gruff but reassuring. "I'll cover your exit. Get Ambassador Arya to safety." As they clambered into the transport, Nolan could see the toll the escape had taken on Arya. Her skin had lost its luminescence, her breathing labored and irregular. Without hesitation, He began to hook her up to the advanced life support systems that line the interior of the vehicle. "I'm not leaving her," Nolan announced as the transport roared to life. "She needs constant medical attention." As they sped away from the hospital, a protective convoy forming around them, Nolan worked feverishly to stabilize Aria's condition. The blend of human and pack-led technology at his disposal allowed him to monitor her vital signs with unprecedented precision. Slowly, Aria's eyes fluttered open, her gaze finding Nolan's. She reached out, grasping his hand weakly. Her skin began to glow once more, pulsing with a pattern he had never seen before. Even without understanding its exact meaning, Nolan could feel the depth of emotion it conveyed, trust, affection, and something more. As the city lights faded behind them, Nolan realized that his life had irrevocably changed. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew that his fate was now inexorably linked with Aria's and with the future of human-packle relations. The road before them was uncertain, but as he held Aria's hand, watching her bioluminescent patterns shift and swirl, Nolan felt ready to face whatever came next. Their next. The medical transport sped through the night, its advanced suspension system smoothing out the rough terrain as they left the city limits behind. Inside, Nolan kept a vigilant eye on Aria's vital signs, his fingers dancing over the holographic displays that monitored her condition. As the miles flew by, Aria's bioluminescent patterns slowly began to stabilize, shifting from erratic flashes to a steady, pulsing glow. Nolan felt a wave of relief wash over him as her breathing evened out and her vitals returned to normal ranges. "How are you feeling?" he asked softly, his hand gently squeezing hers. Aria's iridescent eyes fluttered open, focusing on Nolan's face. "Better," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the transport's engines. "Where are we going?" Before Nolan could answer, the transport began to slow, descending into what appeared to be a nondescript hillside. As they approached, a hidden entrance revealed itself, iris-like doors spiraling open to admit them into a vast underground complex. The transport came to a stop in a brightly lit hangar. As the doors slid open, Nolan was surprised to see a small welcoming committee waiting for them. At the forefront stood a tall, slender figure with familiar bioluminescent markings, unmistakably a pack-led. "Dr. Morales, Ambassador Aria," the pack-led said, stepping forward. "I am Dr. Alara. Welcome to our joint Earth-Packle Medical Research Facility." Nolan blinked in surprise. "Joint facility? I had no idea such a thing existed." Dr. Alara's skin pulsed with a pattern that Nolan interpreted as amusement. "Few do. It's been part of a classified cultural exchange program. But given recent events, it seems secrecy may no longer be an option." As they spoke, a team of medical professionals, both human and pack-led, carefully transferred Aria to a hover stretcher. Nolan watched, impressed by the seamless coordination between the two species. Dr. Alara turned to Nolan, her expression serious. "Dr. Morales, I cannot express enough gratitude for your efforts in saving Ambassador Aria's life. Your innovative approach to her treatment has opened new avenues for interspecies medicine. I hope you'll consider collaborating with us further." Nolan nodded, a spark of excitement igniting within him at the prospect of working alongside pack-led medical experts. "I'd be honored, Dr. Alara." They followed the medical team through pristine corridors, eventually arriving at a specialized recovery suite. The room was a marvel of integrated human and pack-led technology, with equipment Nolan had only dreamed of using. As Aria was settled into the suite, Dr. Alara pulled Nolan aside. "Let's discuss Ambassador Aria's treatment plan. Your insights will be invaluable." Over the next few hours, Nolan found himself deep in conversation with Dr. Alara, comparing notes on pack-led physiology and brainstorming potential treatment options. Their discussion led to several breakthrough ideas, combining Earth medicines with Pac-led healing techniques in ways neither had considered before. As dawn broke, Nolan returned to Aria's bedside, armed with a comprehensive treatment plan. He found her awake, her skin shimmering with a soft, welcoming glow. "You look tired," Aria said, her voice stronger than before. Nolan smiled, taking a seat beside her. "It's been a long night, but a productive one. How are you feeling?" "Much improved, thanks to you," Aria replied, her hand reaching out to grasp his. As they talked, Nolan found himself opening up about his life on Earth, his career aspirations, and his growing fascination with Pac-led culture. In turn, Aria shared stories of her homeworld, her role as an ambassador, and the challenges she faced in bridging the gap between their species. Their conversation was interrupted by Dr. Lara, who entered with a team to begin Aria's next round of treatments. As Nolan stepped back to allow them to work, he caught sight of Aria's skin pulsing with a pattern he'd never seen before, one that seemed to intensify whenever their eyes met. Days passed, blending into a whirlwind of medical breakthroughs and deepening connections. Nolan worked tirelessly alongside Dr. Lara, their collaboration yielding results that exceeded even their most optimistic projections. Aria's recovery progressed rapidly, her strength returning day by day. One evening, as Nolan was reviewing Aria's latest test results, an alarm blared through the facility. Captain Marcus Steele's voice came over the intercom, his tone urgent. "Security alert. All personnel to designated safe zones. This is not a drill." Nolan's heart raced as he rushed to Aria's suite. He found her already alert, her skin pulsing with anxious patterns. Without a word, he helped her to her feet, supporting her as they made their way to the nearest safe zone. As they huddled in the reinforced chamber with other staff members, Nolan couldn't help but feel a sense of déjà vu. Once again, he found himself protecting Aria from an unseen threat. But this time, as he held her close, he realized that his feelings had grown far beyond mere professional duty. Aria's bioluminescent markings swirled with a mix of fear and something else, a warm, pulsing glow that seemed to intensify wherever their bodies touched. In that moment, surrounded by danger, yet wrapped in each other's arms, Nolan knew that his life had changed irrevocably. As the facility's security systems hummed to life around them, Nolan and Aria exchanged a look of understanding. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, not just as doctor and patient or human and pack-led, but as two beings drawn together by forces stronger than either of them had anticipated. The sound of Captain Steele's boots echoed down the corridor, signaling the start of another chapter in their increasingly complex story. Nolan tightened his embrace around Aria, ready to protect her at all costs, while knowing that she, in her own way, was protecting him too. The sound of Captain Steele's boots faded as he rushed past their secure chamber, leaving Nolan and Aria in a tense silence. Moments later, the facility's intercom crackled to life. "Attention all personnel," Steele's voice rang out. "The immediate threat has been neutralized. However, we have an unexpected situation developing. All senior staff and diplomatic personnel, please report to conference room A immediately." Nolan exchanged a puzzled glance with Aria, whose skin pulsed with curious patterns. He helped her to her feet, supporting her as they made their way out of the safe zone and towards the conference room. As they entered, Nolan was struck by the sudden tension in the air. Dr. Lara stood near the front, her bioluminescent markings flickering with what he now recognized as agitation. But it was the new arrivals that commanded the room's attention. A group of Pac-led officials had assembled, led by a tall, imposing figure with deep blue skin adorned with intricate, pulsating patterns. Her presence seemed to fill the room, drawing all eyes towards her. "Dr. Morales, Ambassador Aria," Dr. Lara called out, gesturing for them to approach. "Allow me to introduce Zara, head of the Pac-led diplomatic delegation." Zara's gaze locked onto Aria, her bioluminescent markings flashing in a display that even Nolan could interpret as disapproval. "Ambassador Arya," she said, her voice carrying a note of steel, "I require an immediate explanation for your extended stay on Earth." Arya straightened, her own markings shifting to match Zara's intensity. "Delegate Zara, I assure you my presence here is necessary for—" "Necessary?" Zara interrupted, her patterns pulsing more rapidly. "What I see is our ambassador spending an inordinate amount of time in a human facility, allegedly for medical reasons." Nolan stepped forward, his medical instincts overriding his apprehension. "If I may, Delegate Zara, Ambassador Arya's condition required." Zara's sharp glance silenced him. "And you are—" "Dr. Nolan Morales," he replied, standing his ground. "I've been overseeing Ambassador Arya's treatment." Before Zara could respond, Dr. Alara intervened. "Delegate Zara, if you'll allow me to present our research findings, I believe you'll understand the significance of our work here." As Dr. Alara began her presentation, detailing the groundbreaking advancements made through human-pacal collaboration, Nolan noticed Ambassador Williamsley enter the room. The human diplomat took in the scene with a practiced eye before approaching Zara. "Delegate Zara," he said, his voice smooth and diplomatic. "While Dr. Alara briefs you on the medical aspects, perhaps you'd be interested in a tour of our facility? It would give you a first-hand look at the cooperative efforts between our species." Zara hesitated, her markings swirling in what Nolan now recognized as contemplation. Finally, she nodded. "Very well, Ambassador Lee. Lead the way." As the group filed out for the tour, Nolan felt a wave of relief wash over him. He turned to Arya, noting the fatigue in her eyes. "Let's get you back to your suite," he murmured, supporting her as they left the conference room. They had barely reached Arya's recovery suite when alarms blared through the facility. The lights flickered ominously before plunging them into darkness. Emergency generators kicked in seconds later, bathing the corridors in an eerie red glow. Captain Steele's voice came over the intercom once more. "Attention all personnel. We are initiating lockdown protocols. Please remain where you are and await further instructions." Nolan's mind raced as he helped Arya into her room. "Stay here," he instructed, his medical training kicking in. "I need to check on the lab equipment. Some of our experiments are incredibly sensitive to power fluctuations." He rushed down the corridor towards the main laboratory, nearly colliding with Zara as he rounded a corner. The pack-led delegate's markings pulsed with surprise and irritation. "Dr. Morales," she said, her voice tense. "What's happening?" "Power fluctuation," Nolan explained quickly. "I need to stabilize our equipment. Some of our experiments are—" "Show me," Zara demanded, following him into the lab. As they entered, Nolan immediately noticed the erratic readings on several monitors. He moved swiftly from station to station, adjusting settings and stabilizing systems. To his surprise, Zara began assisting, her long fingers dancing over control panels with practiced ease. "You understand our technology?" Nolan asked, unable to hide his amazement. Zara's markings flickered with what might have been amusement. "I was a scientist before I became a diplomat, Dr. Morales. Your hybrid systems are intriguing." As they worked side by side, Nolan found himself explaining the intricacies of their human-pacled integrated systems. Zara listened intently, occasionally offering insights that left Nolan impressed by her scientific acumen. Across the facility, Arya used the confusion of the lockdown to her advantage. She slipped out of her suite, her bioluminescent markings dimmed to avoid detection. Her curiosity about her own treatment had been gnawing at her, and now seemed the perfect opportunity to investigate. She made her way to a restricted area, using her diplomatic override codes to access a secure terminal. As she scrolled through the files, her eyes widened. The full extent of her near-death experience and the innovative human techniques that had saved her life were laid bare before her. Aria's markings pulse with a mix of emotions, shock, gratitude, and a deepening appreciation for human ingenuity. She had known her condition was serious, but the details of how close she had come to death and the lengths the human medical team had gone to save her were staggering. Meanwhile, in the facility's control center, Dr. Elena Vasquez worked feverishly to dedication the power issue. As she dug deeper into the system logs, a chill ran down her spine. This was no simple malfunction. There were clear signs of an infiltration attempt. She opened a secure channel to Captain Steele. "Captain, we have a situation. I found evidence of external interference in our systems. It bears the hallmarks of the anti-alien extremist group we've been monitoring." Steele's response was immediate and decisive. "Understood, Doctor. Initiate full security protocols. I'm mobilizing my team for a facility-wide sweep." As Steele's security forces began their methodical search of the facility, the atmosphere grew tense. The PAC-led delegation, already on edge from the unexpected lockdown, watched the increased security measures with growing unease. In the midst of the chaos, Nolan and Aria found themselves alone in a secure medical bay. The stress of the situation and their forced separation during the lockdown had taken its toll. As their eyes met, the air between them seemed to crackle with intensity. Without a word, they came together in a passionate embrace. Their bodies intertwined human and pack-led physiology, creating a dance of sensations neither had experienced before. Aria's bioluminescent markings pulsed with a rhythm that matched their racing hearts, casting a soft, ethereal glow over them. Unknown to the entwined couple, a security camera in the corner of the room silently recorded their intimate moment, capturing evidence of a relationship that could have far-reaching consequences for both their worlds. As the facility remained in lockdown, the stage was set for a series of events that would test the limits of human-pacal cooperation and challenge the boundaries of interspecies relationships. The next few hours would prove crucial in shaping the future of Earth's relationship with the pack-led people, and Nolan and Aria's relationship with each other. As the facility's systems gradually stabilized, the tension that had gripped the complex began to ease. Nolan and Aria, still reeling from their intimate encounter, found themselves thrust into a whirlwind of activity as the true nature of recent events came to light. Dr. Elena Vasquez's discovery of the infiltration attempt had set off a chain reaction of heightened security measures and diplomatic maneuvering. In the days that followed, as the dust settled, an unexpected opportunity emerged from the chaos. Delegate Zara, impressed by the human team's handling of the crisis and intrigued by the potential of their hybrid medical technologies, extended an invitation that would change everything. "Dr. Morales," Zara announced during a debriefing session, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing with what Nolan now recognized as a mix of excitement and apprehension. "I would like to formally invite you to visit the Pack-led homeworld as part of a new exchange program." The room fell silent, all eyes turning to Nolan. He glanced at Aria, whose markings flickered with a complex array of emotions. I'm honored," Nolan stammered, his mind racing with the implications. "But I'm not sure I'm the best candidate for—" Ambassador Williamsley stepped forward, his diplomatic instincts kicking in. "This is an incredible opportunity, Dr. Morales. Your expertise and your experience working with Ambassador Aria make you uniquely qualified to lead this initiative." Over the next few weeks, plans for the exchange program took shape. Nolan found himself at the center of a flurry of preparations, working closely with Dr. Elena Vasquez and two other specialists in xenobiology and advanced medical technologies to form a small but formidable team. As the departure date approached, Aria made her way to Zara's office, her markings pulsing with purpose. "Delegate Zara, I request permission to accompany the human delegation to our homeworld." Zara's patterns flickered with surprise. "Ambassador Aria, your presence here on Earth is no longer as critical as it once was," Aria interjected. My unique perspective on human medical practices could prove invaluable during this exchange. And as the original ambassador, I believe I can help bridge any cultural gaps that may arise. Zara considered for a moment, her markings swirling in contemplation. Finally, she nodded. Very well, Ambassador. Your request is granted. As the team made final preparations, Captain Marcus Steele led a joint human-Pacal security team in a thorough sweep of the interstellar vessel designated for the journey. They implemented advanced security protocols, determined to prevent any potential sabotage attempts by anti-alien extremist groups. The night before their departure, Nolan and Arya found themselves alone in a secure area of the facility. The weight of their impending journey and the intensity of their feelings for each other created an electric atmosphere. Without a word, they came together, their bodies intertwining in a passionate embrace. Arya's bioluminescent patterns pulsated with vivid displays of emotion, casting a soft, otherworldly glow over their entwined forms. As they separated, breathless and flushed, neither noticed the small red light of a malfunctioning security camera in the corner of the room, silently capturing their intimate moment. The journey to the Pac-led homeworld stretched over several weeks, during which the human team grappled with the challenges of long-term space travel. Nolan worked tirelessly alongside Dr. Alara, developing treatments to combat the physiological effects of prolonged exposure to artificial gravity and cosmic radiation on human bodies. As they entered Pac-led space, the human delegation gathered at the viewing port, awestruck by the advanced technology on display. Massive orbital structures and sleek spacecraft dotted the star-filled expanse, a testament to the Pac-led civilization's technological prowess. Their vessel docked at a colossal orbital medical research station, a breathtaking fusion of Pac-led and human architectural elements. As they disembarked, Nolan couldn't help but feel a sense of both excitement and trepidation about the challenges that lay ahead. The team was escorted to their quarters, marveling at the seamless integration of familiar human comforts with alien design elements. As they settled in, Nolan and Arya exchanged a meaningful glance, both acutely aware of the need to maintain a professional facade despite their deepening emotional connection. Their first days on the station were a whirlwind of introductions, tours, and preliminary meetings. Nolan and his team dove headfirst into collaborative work with Pac-led scientists, focusing on integrating human and Pac-led medical knowledge. During a tour of the station's advanced medical facilities, alarms suddenly blared through the complex. A Pac-led researcher had suffered a severe allergic reaction to an experimental compound, his bioluminescent patterns flashing erratically in distress. Without hesitation, Nolan sprang into action. Drawing on his expertise in cross-species medical issues and the knowledge he'd gained from treating Arya, he quickly assessed the situation and began administering treatment. "I need a biostabilizer now," Nolan called out, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. As a Pac-led medical technician handed him the device, Nolan calibrated it with practiced ease, adjusting for the unique physiology of his patient. Within minutes, the researcher's condition stabilized, his markings returning to a normal rhythm. The Pac-led medical staff looked on in amazement, murmuring among themselves about the human doctor's quick thinking and innovative approach. As news of Nolan's life-saving intervention spread through the station and to the Pac-led homeworld below, he found himself thrust into the spotlight. Media outlets clamored for interviews, and Pac-led officials began discussing the possibility of expanding the exchange program. However, not everyone welcomed this surge of human influence. Senator Krev, a charismatic and conservative Pac-led politician, viewed the situation with growing alarm. In a private meeting with his advisors, Krev's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with terrifying anger. "We cannot allow these humans unfettered access to our most advanced medical knowledge," Krev declared, his markings flashing intensely. "They are a young, impulsive species. Who knows how they might misuse such power?" As Krev's faction began to voice their concerns more openly, Delegate Zara found herself caught in a difficult political balancing act. She arranged for Nolan to present the benefits of human-pacal medical cooperation to a group of influential Pac-led leaders, hoping to sway public opinion. Amidst this growing controversy, Nolan and Arya struggled to find moments of privacy. The stress of their public roles and the secrecy of their relationship began to weigh heavily on them both. One evening, seeking a moment of respite, they met in a secluded area of the orbital station's botanical garden. As they sat among the alien flora, Arya's bioluminescent patterns began to display a complex sequence that Nolan had never seen before. "Arya," Nolan whispered, mesmerized by the intricate dance of light across her skin. "What does that mean?" Before Arya could respond, they heard a rustle in the nearby foliage. As they turned to investigate, neither noticed the retreating figure of Senator Krev's aide, hurrying away with the knowledge of what he had just witnessed, a bioluminescent display that, among the Pac-led, signified a deep and profound emotional bond. As the aide rushed to report his findings to Senator Krev, Nolan and Arya remained in the garden, unaware that their private moment had been observed. The complex interplay of personal relationships, scientific advancement, and interspecies politics was about to become even more complicated, with their bond at the very center of the storm. "Storm." Senator Krev's aide burst into his office, his bioluminescent patterns flashing urgently. "Senator, I have crucial information," the aide whispered, glancing around to ensure they were alone. Krev's markings pulsed with interest. "Speak." "I witnessed Dr. Morales and Ambassador Arya in the botanical garden. Her bioluminescent display, it was unmistakable. They share a deep emotional bond." Krev's patterns flared with a mix of shock and triumph. This was the ammunition he needed. Without hesitation, he called for an emergency session of the Pac-led High Council. Within hours, the council chamber buzzed with tension. Krev stood at the center, his markings pulsing with righteous indignation. "Esteemed colleagues," he began, his voice resonating through the chamber, "we face a crisis of unprecedented magnitude. The human presence on our world has gone beyond mere scientific exchange. They now threaten the very fabric of our society." Murmurs rippled through the assembled counselors. Delegate Zara, caught off guard by the sudden session, struggled to maintain her composure. Krev continued, his patterns intensifying. "I present evidence of human contamination at the highest levels of our diplomatic corps." With a gesture, he activated a holographic display, showing the footage of Nolan and Arya in the botanical garden. Gasps echoed through the chamber as Arya's intimate bioluminescent display played out before them. Zara's markings flashed with alarm, realizing the gravity of the situation. "This human-pacal relationship is a clear violation of our cultural norms and diplomatic protocols," Krev declared. "I move for the immediate termination of the exchange program and the expulsion of all humans from Pac-led space." The chamber erupted into chaos. Counselors argued vehemently, their bioluminescent patterns creating a dizzying light show. Zara fought to be heard above the din. "Colleagues, please," she called out, her markings pulsing steadily. "Let us not act hastily. The exchange program has already yielded significant medical advancements. We must consider the potential benefits for both our species." As the debate raged on, Dr. Elena Vasquez worked diligently in the orbital station's research lab, unaware of the political storm brewing below. She meticulously analyzed Pac-led genetic samples, searching for insights that could further their collaborative efforts. Suddenly, her computer emitted a series of urgent beeps. Elena's eyes widened as she processed the data before her. "This can't be right," she muttered, running the analysis again. The results remained unchanged. Elena had identified a rare genetic mutation in the Pac-led samples, one that could have catastrophic consequences. She quickly cross-referenced the data with environmental factors unique to Pac-led space. "Oh no," she breathed, her face paling. The mutation appeared to be triggered by exposure to a specific type of radiation found only in this region of space. If left unchecked, it could weaken the immune systems of millions of Pakled citizens, leaving them vulnerable to a potentially devastating epidemic. Elena's fingers flew across the keyboard, compiling her findings into a concise report. She needed to inform Nolan and the Pakled medical team immediately. As she hurried from the lab, she couldn't shake the feeling that this discovery might change everything. Meanwhile, in the council chamber, the debate had reached a fever pitch. Krev's faction argued passionately for the expulsion of the humans, while Zara and her supporters fought to preserve the exchange program. Just as it seemed Krev might sway the majority, a Pakled aide rushed into the chamber, his markings flashing urgently. He whispered something to Zara, whose pattern suddenly shifted to a complex display of concern and drive. "Esteemed colleagues," Zara announced, her voice cutting through the chaos. "I have just received critical information that demands our immediate attention. A potential health crisis threatens our people, one that may require the expertise of our human allies to solve." The chamber fell silent as Zara explained the situation. The gravity of the threat momentarily overshadowed the political debate. Even Krev, despite his anti-human stance, couldn't ignore the potential danger to their population. After hours of heated discussion, a compromise was reached. Nolan and his team would be given 48 hours to develop a treatment protocol. The success or failure of their efforts would determine the fate of the exchange program and the future of human-Pakled relations. As Nolan received word of the challenge ahead, he steeled himself for the task. The weight of two worlds now rested on his shoulders, and the clock was ticking. Ticking. With a deep breath, he turned to Dr. Elena Vasquez and the rest of his team. "We have 48 hours to develop a treatment protocol," Nolan announced, his voice steady despite the pressure. "Let's get to work." The next 2 days passed in a blur of intense research, experimentation, and collaboration. Nolan and Elena worked tirelessly alongside their Pakled counterparts, pushing the boundaries of their combined medical knowledge. As the deadline approached, their efforts paid off. They successfully developed a treatment protocol that showed promising results in initial trials. The Pakled High Council, impressed by the human team's dedication and effectiveness, voted to continue the exchange program. In the weeks that followed, the human-Pakled collaboration flourished. The successful treatment of the genetic mutation not only saved countless Pakled lives, but also paved the way for further medical breakthroughs. The day of the grand ceremony to honor the human medical team arrived. Nolan, Elena, and the rest of the delegation were escorted to an enormous amphitheater on the Pakled homeworld. The structure was a marvel of alien architecture, its sweeping lines and bioluminescent accents a testament to Pakled ingenuity. As they entered, Nolan was struck by the sheer number of attendees. Thousands of Pakled citizens and dignitaries filled the seats, their collective bioluminescent patterns creating a dazzling light show. The air buzzed with a mix of excitement and lingering tension from recent events. Nolan scanned the crowd, his eyes eventually landing on Arya. She stood with a group of Pakled officials, her own bioluminescent markings pulsing with a complex pattern that Nolan had come to recognize as a mix of pride and nervousness. As the ceremony progressed, Nolan found himself called to the stage to receive a prestigious Pakled scientific award. He made his way to the podium, acutely aware of the eyes upon him. As he walked, he noticed several members of Senator Krev's conservative faction engaged in hushed conversations, their bioluminescent patterns indicating agitation and secrecy. Nolan's instincts, honed by recent experiences, prickled with unease. Something felt off, but he pushed the feeling aside as he accepted the award, focusing on delivering his prepared speech. "Thank you for this great honor," Nolan began, his voice carrying across the amphitheater. "This award represents not just my work, but the incredible collaboration between our two species. Together, we've proven that His words were cut short by a sudden commotion in the crowd. Shouts of alarm rang out, followed by the sound of coughing and gasping. Nolan's medical training kicked in immediately as he recognized the signs of respiratory distress spreading through the audience. In a matter of seconds, chaos erupted. A group of Pac-led extremists, their faces hidden behind protective masks, moved through the crowd with purpose. Nolan's eyes widened as he realized they were releasing some kind of biochemical agent into the air. "Everybody out!" Nolan shouted, abandoning the podium and rushing to help those nearest to him. "Cover your mouths and noses." Captain Marcus Steele, who had been standing guard near the stage, sprang into action. He quickly organized the human security team and worked with Pac-led guards to establish a defensive perimeter around the delegation. "Dr. Morales," Steele called out, "we need to get you and the team to safety." Nolan shook his head, his focus on the suffering attendees. "We can't leave them like this. Elena," he called out to his colleague, "we need to synthesize an antidote now." Elena nodded, already moving towards a nearby medical station. Nolan joined her, his mind racing as he analyzed the symptoms he was seeing. "It's similar to the genetic mutation we treated," Nolan muttered, his fingers flying over the Pac-led medical interface. "But they've modified it, made it more aggressive." As they worked, Nolan's eyes darted around the amphitheater, searching for Arya. He spotted her across the room, using her diplomatic status to coordinate evacuation efforts. His heart clenched as he saw her moving closer to the advancing extremists. "Elena, keep working on the antidote," Nolan said, his voice tight. "I need to get to Arya." Before Elena could protest, Nolan was off, weaving through the panicked crowd. He narrowly avoided the biochemical agent and the grasping hands of the extremists as he made his way across the amphitheater. Just as he reached Arya, Delegate Zara's voice boomed over the amphitheater's communication system. "Attention all personnel. The amphitheater is now in lockdown. This is for your safety and to contain the threat. Please remain calm and follow the instructions of security personnel." Nolan grabbed Arya's arm, pulling her close. "Are you okay?" he asked, his eyes scanning her for any signs of exposure to the agent. Arya nodded, her bioluminescent patterns flickering with a mix of fear and perseverance. "I'm fine, but we need to help these people." Together, they worked to move as many affected Pac-led as possible towards the medical stations set up around the perimeter of the amphitheater. As they worked, Nolan's mind raced, trying to piece together a solution. Suddenly, Elena's voice crackled over his communicator. "Nolan, I've done it. I've synthesized an antidote, but we only have enough for one large-scale dispersal." Nolan's heart raced as he realized the implications. Releasing the antidote would neutralize the biochemical agent and save lives, but it would also create confusion that might allow the extremists to escape. He looked at Arya, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing with trust and support. In that moment, he made his decision. "Do it, Elena," Nolan said firmly. "Release the antidote." As the antidote dispersed through the air, the effects were almost immediate. The coughing and gasping began to subside, and visibility improved as the biochemical agent was neutralized. In the ensuing confusion, Captain Steele led a joint human-Pacal security team in apprehending the extremists. They managed to capture several, but in the chaos, a few slipped away. As the immediate danger passed, Nolan threw himself into treating the affected attendees. His actions, broadcast across Pac-led media networks, further cemented his status as a hero to many Pac-led citizens. Hours later, as the emergency response wound down, Nolan's communicator buzzed with a new message. His breath caught as he read the contents. Concrete evidence linking Senator Krev to the extremist group, and hints of a larger conspiracy involving off-world factions opposed to human-Pacal cooperation. Nolan looked up from the message to find Arya approaching, her bioluminescent patterns reflecting exhaustion and relief. They moved together without a word, their bodies intertwining in a display of affection and shared trauma. Their moment was interrupted by Elena's arrival. "Nolan, Arya," she said, her voice urgent. "I've made a startling discovery while analyzing the biochemical agent. You need to see this." As they huddled together to discuss Elena's findings, Nolan couldn't shake the feeling that this attack was just the beginning. Whatever lay ahead, he knew it would test the limits of human-pacal cooperation and his relationship with Arya in ways he could scarcely imagine. As Elena unveiled her findings, Nolan's mind raced with the implications. The biochemical agent used in the attack contained traces of a mineral unknown to both human and pack-led science. This discovery hinted at a conspiracy far greater than they had initially suspected. "We need to inform Zara immediately," Arya said, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing with urgency. Within hours, they found themselves in a secure conference room aboard the pack-led orbital station. Zara, her markings displaying a mix of concern and commitment, listened intently as Elena presented her analysis. The mineral's composition suggested originates from a remote uninhabited planet in a neighboring star system, Elena explained, projecting a holographic map of the region. Zara's patterns shifted to a complex array of blues and greens. "This changes everything," she said. "We need to investigate the source of this mineral. I'm authorizing a covert mission immediately." The next few days were a whirlwind of preparation. Zara assembled a joint team, combining the expertise of humans and pack-led. Nolan, Arya, and Elena were joined by Captain Marcus Steele and a group of elite pack-led scientists and security personnel. As they boarded the advanced pack-led stealth vessel, Nolan couldn't help but marvel at its sleek design. The ship's interior was a seamless blend of organic pack-led technology and cutting-edge research facilities. Once they entered hyperspace, Nolan and Arya found themselves working closely in the onboard laboratory. The confined space and high-stakes situation heightened the tension between them. As they analyzed mineral samples and developed potential countermeasures, their hands would occasionally brush, sending electric jolts through Nolan's body. One evening, as the rest of the crew slept, Nolan and Arya found themselves alone in a secluded corner of the ship. The soft hum of the engines and the dim bioluminescent lighting created an intimate atmosphere. "Nolan," Arya whispered, her patterns shifting to a deep, pulsing purple. "I can't stop thinking about you." Their lips met in a passionate kiss, hands exploring each other's alien physiology. They barely made it back to Nolan's quarters before giving in to their desires. As the days passed, Nolan and Arya struggled to maintain a professional facade in front of the crew. Their stolen glances and subtle touches didn't go unnoticed by Elena, who raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Finally, they arrived at their destination. The remote planet loomed before them, its surface a patchwork of harsh deserts and jagged mountain ranges. Captain Steele led a ground team to investigate, with Nolan joining as the medical expert. As they approached the abandoned mining facility, Nolan's heart raced with anticipation. The facility's automated defense system sprang to life, forcing the team to take cover behind rocky outcroppings. "We need to bypass those security measures," Steele shouted over the sound of energy weapons fire. Nolan's mind worked furiously, recalling the pack-led technology he had studied. "Captain, if we can interface our pack-led tech with the facility's systems, we might be able to create a temporary override." Working together, the human and pack-led team members managed to hack into the facility's mainframe. The defenses powered down, allowing them to enter the complex. Inside, they discovered a treasure trove of information. Holographic displays and data crystals revealed the existence of a shadowy organization called the Galactic Purists. This group, composed of rogue elements from multiple species, sought to prevent interspecies cooperation and maintain the isolation of developing worlds like Earth. As Nolan examined a console, a hidden compartment released a fine mist. He inhaled sharply, realizing too late that he had been exposed to a new variant of the biochemical agent. The world around him began to shift and warp. Colors became more vivid, sounds more intense. Nolan stumbled, his mind flooded with vivid hallucinations. "Nolan!" Aria's voice cut through the chaos in his mind. She rushed to his side, her bioluminescent patterns flashing with concern. Using her knowledge of Pac-led biology and the human treatments they had developed, Aria worked tirelessly to stabilize Nolan's condition. As she placed her hands on his temples, attempting to calm his overstimulated nervous system, something unexpected happened. Nolan felt a surge of energy coursing through him. Suddenly, he could sense Aria's thoughts and emotions as if they were his own. Their minds intertwined, creating a psychic link unlike anything either of them had experienced before. In this shared mental space, they saw flashes of each other's lives. Childhood memories, hopes, fears, and dreams. Nolan felt Aria's deep affection for him, tinged with worry about the future of their relationship. Aria, in turn, experienced Nolan's unwavering commitment to their cause and his growing love for her. As Nolan's condition stabilized and the psychic link faded, they were left with a profound understanding of each other. Their bond had deepened in ways they couldn't have imagined. Meanwhile, Elena made a breakthrough in her analysis of the mineral. "This isn't just a weapon component," she announced, her eyes wide with excitement. "It has the potential to be a powerful clean energy source. No wonder the galactic purists want to control it." The implications of this discovery were staggering. It could revolutionize energy production and space travel for both Earth and Pac-led. As the team prepared to return with their findings, alarms blared throughout the facility. Captain Steele's voice crackled over the comm system. Multiple unmarked ships approaching. Likely galactic purists. Everyone back to the ship, now. They raced back to their vessel, the sound of enemy fire echoing behind them. As they initiated emergency launch procedures, a massive explosion rocked the ship. "Hull breach in Sector 7. A Pac-led crew member shouted. The damaged vessel limped away from the planet, the mysterious fleet in hot pursuit. Nolan and Aria rushed to the bridge, their minds already working in tandem to find a solution. As they stared out at the vastness of space, the enemy ships closing in, Nolan felt Aria's hand slip into his. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Together, as they faced a vast expanse of space, the enemy ships looming ever closer, the damaged Pac-led vessel shuddered violently. Alarms blared throughout the ship, their urgent wails echoing through the corridors. "Main power core failing," a Pac-led engineer shouted from his console. "We're losing critical systems." Captain Steele's voice crackled over the intercom, all non-essential power to be rerouted to engines and life support. "We need every ounce of speed we can muster." Nolan and Aria exchanged a glance, their newfound psychic link allowing them to communicate without words. They rushed to the medical bay, where injured crew members lay on makeshift beds. As they worked tirelessly to stabilize the wounded, the ship lurched again. Nolan steadied himself against a bulkhead, his hands covered in a mixture of human and Pac-led blood. Aria moved with practiced grace, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing with commitment as she administered pain relief to a groaning human ensign. "We need to secure this equipment," Nolan said, eyeing the precariously balanced medical supplies. "If we hit another dash..." His words were cut short as the ship banked hard to starboard. Loose items clattered to the floor, and Nolan found himself pressed against Aria, their bodies intertwined as they struggled to maintain balance. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Nolan could feel Aria's rapid heartbeat, her warm breath on his neck. Their psychic link flared, emotions and sensations flooding between them. The moment was broken by Captain Steele's voice over the intercom. "All hands, brace for impact. We're entering the asteroid field." Nolan and Aria sprang into action, securing equipment and patience as best they could. The ship weaved through the dense field of space rocks, each near miss sending tremors through the hull. In the laboratory, Elena worked feverishly, her eyes darting between holographic displays. As she analyzed the mysterious mineral, her face lit up with sudden realization. "That's it!" she exclaimed, her fingers flying over the console. "The mineral's energy signature. We can use it to mask our presence." She rushed to the bridge, nearly colliding with Nolan and Arya as they emerged from the medical bay. "Captain," Elena said breathlessly, "I have a plan to evade the Purists, but it's risky." As Elena explained her theory, Nolan felt a surge of hope. It was dangerous, yes, but it might be their only chance. "Do it," Captain Steele ordered, his heart made. The next hours were a blur of activity. Nolan, Arya, and Elena worked in the lab, modifying the ship's shield emitters to incorporate the mineral's properties. The work was painstaking and perilous, requiring direct handling of the unstable substance. Nolan's expertise in human biochemistry proved crucial in stabilizing the volatile mineral, while Arya's knowledge of Pakled technology allowed for its integration into the ship's systems. As they worked, the ship shuddered violently. A massive asteroid had struck the port side, tearing a gaping hole in the hull. Emergency force fields flickered to life, but the damage forced several crew members to evacuate to the central areas of the ship. Tensions rose as human and Pakled crew members found themselves in closer quarters than ever before. Nolan, sensing the potential for conflict, stepped forward. "Listen up," he said, his voice carrying authority despite his exhaustion. "We're all in this together. Human or Pakled, it doesn't matter. We need to work as one if we're going to survive." He quickly organized mixed teams, assigning critical repair and defense tasks. His ability to bridge the gap between the two species helped maintain focus and order during the crisis. With the modified shield emitters nearly complete, Captain Steele executed a daring maneuver. He piloted the ship into the hollow core of a massive asteroid, using it as cover from the pursuing Purist fleet, activating new shielding system. "Now," Elena called out. The ship was enveloped in a shimmering field that mimicked the energy signature of the surrounding space rocks. For a moment, everything seemed to hold its breath. Then, the unexpected happened. The mineral's energy began to interact with the ship's life support systems, altering the atmosphere inside the vessel. Crew members started experiencing heightened sensory perception and increased emotional sensitivity. Nolan and Arya felt their psychic link growing stronger, more intense. Thoughts and feelings flowed between them like a rushing river, deepening their connection, but also raising concerns about the long-term effects of such an intense bond. As the Galactic Purist ships drew near their hiding spot, the crew maintained absolute silence and minimal power output. The shared tension and altered state of consciousness led to a surreal experience for all aboard. Nolan and Arya moved through the ship, their enhanced empathic abilities allowing them to soothe fears and maintain focus among the crew. Their touch brought calm, their words instilled hope. Just when it seemed they might have escaped detection, Captain Steele received a coded transmission. Hope surged through the crew as they learned a rescue fleet, led by Zara herself, was en route to their location. But their ordeal was far from finished. The rescue fleet was still hours away, and the Galactic Purists showed no signs of abandoning their search. As Nolan and Arya stood on the bridge, watching the enemy ships on the interface, they knew the real challenge was just beginning. They would need to maintain their hidden position, manage the escalating physiological effects of the mineral-enhanced shields, and prepare for a potential confrontation. The mineral's properties, their deepening relationship, and the looming threat of discovery all hung in the balance. Nolan turned to Arya, their eyes meeting in silent understanding. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Together, their eyes locked on the looming threat of the Galactic Purist ships. As they stood united on the bridge, the mineral-enhanced shields began to intensify their effects, sending ripples of sensation through the entire crew. Nolan's skin tingled, his senses heightening to an almost painful degree. He could hear the rapid heartbeats of his fellow crew members, smell the acrid tang of fear in the recycled air. Beside him, Aria's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with increased frequency, her eyes wide as she experienced the same sensory overload. Their psychic link, already strong, suddenly exploded into vivid clarity. Thoughts and emotions flowed between them like a rushing river, no longer requiring words or even conscious effort to communicate. Captain Steele, observing the change in their demeanor, approached the pair. "Dr. Morales, Ambassador Aria, I need you to use this connection. Monitor the crew, keep them focused. We can't afford any mistakes with those bastards out there hunting us." Nolan nodded, feeling Aria's agreement through their link. They moved to the command center, positioning themselves where they could observe both the internal systems and the external sensor readouts. As they settled into their new roles, Nolan found himself overwhelmed by a flood of alien memories. He saw a young Aria, her bioluminescent patterns barely formed, taking her first steps on the Pac-led homeworld. The vivid orange sky and dense, purple foliage of her childhood home filled his mind. Simultaneously, Aria gasped as she experienced Nolan's first day of medical school, feeling the weight of responsibility and the thrill of discovery as if they were her own. She watched through his eyes as he encountered his first alien patient, marveling at the human's ability to adapt and learn. Their shared experiences only deepened their connection, and with it came a surge of physical attraction that threatened to overwhelm them both. Nolan's heart raced as he felt Aria's desire mingling with his own, their bodies responding to the shared sensations. "Nolan," Aria whispered, her voice husky, "we need to focus." He nodded, forcing himself to concentrate on the task at hand. Around them, the crew moved with an air of tension, their own heightened senses making them acutely aware of the charged atmosphere between the human and Pac-led. Dr. Elena Vasquez approached, her normally calm demeanor showing signs of excitement. "Captain," she called out, "I've noticed something interesting about the shields. There seems to be a correlation between emotional states and shield effectiveness." Captain Steele turned to her, eyebrow raised. "Explain." "The more positive the crew's emotions, the more stable and effective our shielding becomes," Elena said. "I think we might be able to use this to our advantage." The captain considered for a moment, then nodded. "All right, let's give it a try. Dr. Morales, Ambassador Aria, I want you to lead some team-building exercises. Use your enhanced abilities to guide the crew through meditation, shared storytelling, anything that might boost morale." Nolan and Aria set to work, using their psychic link to silently coordinate their efforts. They moved through the ship, touching minds with each crew member, guiding them through calming visualizations and shared positive memories. As the hours passed, the atmosphere on the ship began to change. Laughter echoed through the corridors, and the tension that had gripped the crew began to ease. Elena's monitors showed a marked improvement in the stability of their shielding. However, the prolonged exposure to the mineral's effects was taking its toll. Nolan felt a warm trickle from his nose and realized he was bleeding. Around him, he saw other crew members experiencing similar symptoms. Elena, ever vigilant, noticed the change immediately. "Captain," she said, her voice low with concern, "we need to find a way to neutralize these effects before they cause permanent damage." As Elena worked furiously in her lab to develop a solution, the ship's sensors suddenly came to life. A galactic Purist scout ship was moving through the asteroid field, its sensors probing dangerously close to their hiding spot. Captain Steele's voice cut through the sudden silence. "All hands maintain absolute quiet. Minimal power output. If they detect us, we're finished." Nolan and Aria, their minds still linked, began to silently coordinate the crew's actions. Through their shared consciousness, they guided each member to make minute adjustments to the ship's systems, keeping them just below the threshold of detection. The scout ship drew closer, its energy beams sweeping across the asteroid field. Nolan could feel the collective fear of the crew, their hearts pounding in unison. He reached out with his mind, projecting a sense of calm and focus. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours as the scout ship passed within meters of their position. Finally, after an eternity of tension, the enemy vessel moved on, continuing its sweep of the asteroid field. As the immediate danger passed, Captain Steele called Nolan, Arya, and Elena to the bridge. "We can't stay here forever," he said, his voice grim. "We need a plan to get out of this mess." Elena spoke up, her eyes bright with a mix of excitement and apprehension. "I think I've developed a neutralizing agent for the mineral's effects. But using it will likely sever all the psychic connections that have formed, including—" She trailed off, looking at Nolan and Arya. Nolan felt a surge of emotion from Arya. Fear, sadness, and a desperate desire to maintain their connection. He knew she could feel his own turmoil, the conflict between his logical understanding of the need to neutralize the mineral's effects and his deep desire to maintain their profound bond. As they grappled with this difficult decision, Captain Steele's voice cut through their shared thoughts. "We might not have time for that. I have another idea, but it's risky. Risky, but it might be our only chance to escape," Captain Steele said, his eyes fixed on the sensor readings. "Dr. Morales, I need you and Ambassador Arya to coordinate a concentrated mental energy pulse. We'll use the crew's heightened state to our advantage." Nolan's eyes widened as he grasped the implications. "You want us to channel the crew's mental energy? Captain, that's never been done before. We have no idea what the consequences might be." "It's a risk we have to take," Steele replied firmly. "The alternative is capture by the purists. I think we all know what that means." Arya squeezed Nolan's hand, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing with dedication. "We can do this, Nolan. Our connection is stronger than ever. We can be the focal point for the crew's energy." Nolan nodded, pushing aside his doubts. They had no choice. "All right, let's do it. We'll need to position crew members throughout the ship to maximize the effect." As Captain Steele began coordinating the preparations, Nolan and Arya took their places in the command center. Their psychic link hummed with intensity, thoughts and emotions flowing between them like a raging river. Dr. Elena Vasquez approached, her face etched with concern. "I've been monitoring the mineral's effects. The prolonged exposure is causing some worrying physiological changes. We need to be careful." Before Nolan could respond, the ship's sensors blared a warning. Elena rushed to her console, her eyes widening. "Captain, the Purist fleet is closing in. They're beginning a systematic scan of the asteroid field." Captain Steele's voice rang out over the ship's comm system. "All hands, prepare for energy pulse. This is our last chance. Dr. Morales, Ambassador Arya, we're counting on you." Nolan and Arya stood at the center of the command center, their bodies beginning to glow with a faint, pulsating light. As they focused on channeling the crew's mental energy, the intensity of their psychic link reached unprecedented levels. Suddenly, Elena's voice cut through their concentration. "Captain, the mineral samples we retrieved, they're resonating with the energy we're generating. It's amplifying the effect." "Bring them here," Steele ordered. "Quickly." As the samples were carefully transported to the command center, Nolan felt the energy building within him. His skin tingled, every nerve ending alive with sensation. Beside him, Arya's bioluminescent patterns flashed rapidly, her body trembling with the effort of containing the growing power. The moment the mineral samples were integrated into their makeshift apparatus, Nolan and Arya's psychic connection exploded into new realms of intensity. Their minds merged completely, thoughts and memories flowing freely between them. Physical sensations mingled and multiplied, every touch, every breath shared between their linked consciousness. Nolan gasped as he felt Aria's heart beating in perfect sync with his own. Her alien physiology became as familiar to him as his own body. Through their shared senses, he could feel the vibrations of the ship's engines, taste the metallic tang of recycled air, and hear the rapid heartbeats of the entire crew. Energy levels are reaching critical mass, Elena called out, her voice sounding distant through the haze of sensation. We need to release the pulse now. Captain Steele's command cut through the din. Now, Dr. Morales, release the pulse. Nolan and Aria, their bodies and minds intertwined, became the focal point of the crew's combined mental effort. The energy surged through them, building to an almost unbearable crescendo. With a shared thought, they released the pulse. A blinding flash erupted from the ship, expanding outward through the asteroid field. The pulse washed over the galactic purist fleet, its energy crackling across their hulls. Electrical systems sputtered and died, leaving the enemy ships drifting helplessly in space. It worked, Elena shouted, her voice filled with disbelief and joy. The purist fleet is disabled. Captain Steele wasted no time. Full power to engines. Get us out of here. As the damaged pack-led vessel lurched forward, pushing its systems to the limit, Nolan and Aria collapsed into each other's arms. The intensity of the energy pulse had left them physically and mentally drained. Elena rushed to their side, medical scanner in hand. The mineral's effects have reached critical levels, she said, her voice tight with worry. I need to administer the neutralizing agent immediately. Nolan and Aria looked at each other, their shared consciousness still intertwined. The thought of severing their connection filled them both with a sense of profound loss. But before they could make a decision, the ship's long-range sensors lit up. Captain, the tactical officer called out, I'm detecting multiple ships approaching. It's the pack-led rescue fleet. Relief washed over the crew as Captain Steele established communication with the incoming ships. However, their momentary reprieve was short-lived. The energy pulse that had saved them now threatened to be their undoing. The mineral samples began emitting a high-frequency resonance, interfering with the ship's navigation systems. The vessel veered off course, heading straight for the approaching pack-led fleet. Nolan and Aria, still linked by their psychic bond, instinctively sprang into action. Their merged consciousness allowed them to process the complex interplay of human and pack-led technology at lightning speed. Working in perfect unison, they made rapid adjustments to the navigation systems, compensating for the mineral's interference. Their fingers flew over the controls. Their movements so synchronized was as if one mind controlled both their bodies. The ship's trajectory stabilized, narrowly avoiding a collision with the lead pack-led vessel. As the rescue ships began docking procedures, Captain Steele approached Nolan and Aria. Outstanding work, both of you. I don't think we'd have made it without your unique connection. Elena stepped forward, her expression grave. Captain, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we're not out of danger yet. The mineral's effects on their bodies are reaching critical levels. Without the neutralizing agent, we risk permanent physiological changes. Nolan and Aria exchanged a look, their linked minds grappling with the decision before them. The thought of losing their unprecedented connection filled them both with dread, but the potential consequences of maintaining it were equally terrifying. Before they could voice their decision, the ship shuddered violently. Alarms blared as the docking procedure was interrupted by an unexpected surge of energy from the mineral samples. We need to evacuate now, Captain Steele shouted over the din. Everyone to the rescue ships. As the crew rushed to evacuate, Nolan and Aria found themselves being ushered onto Zar's flagship, still physically entwined and mentally linked. The fate of their unique bond hung in the balance as they left the damaged pack-led vessel behind, the mysterious mineral samples secured in a containment unit beside them. As the rescue ship's doors sealed shut and emergency medical teams rushed to attend to them, Nolan and Arya shared one last moment of perfect unity. Whatever the future held, they knew their experience had forever changed them, and potentially the future of human-Pekal relations. The flagship's engines roared to life, carrying them away from the disabled Purist fleet and the asteroid field that had been their refuge and nearly their tomb. As they sped towards safety, new challenges and discoveries loomed on the horizon, waiting to test the bonds of their unprecedented connection. The flagship's engines hummed steadily as it carried them away from danger, but for Nolan and Arya, the ordeal was nowhere near the end. As they lay on the medical bay beds, their bodies still intertwined, the effects of their prolonged exposure to the mineral reached a critical point. Nolan's muscles began to spasm violently, his chest heaving as he struggled to draw breath. Beside him, Arya's bioluminescent patterns flickered erratically, pulsing with an intensity that made the medical staff shield their eyes. Dr. Elena Vasquez rushed to their side, her face etched with concern. "We need to stabilize them immediately," she barked to the Pakled medical team. "Set up a quarantine area. We can't risk contamination from the residual energy." As the medical staff scrambled to comply, Captain Marcus Steele's voice crackled over the intercom. "Dr. Vasquez, what's their status?" Elena's fingers flew over her medical scanner, her brow furrowing at the readings. "Critical, Captain. The mineral's effects are accelerating. We need to act fast." In the background, alarms blared as the mineral samples, now secured in a containment unit, continued to emit their high-frequency resonance. Electronic systems throughout the ship flickered and sputtered, struggling against the interference. "Understood, Doctor," Steele responded, his voice tight with tension. "I'm coordinating with Pakled engineers to design a shielding system. Do what you need to do." Elena turned back to her patients, her mind racing through possible treatments. She knew she had to make a difficult decision, and quickly. "I'm starting with Nolan," she announced to her team. "His human physiology is more vulnerable. Prepare the neutralizing agent." As Elena began administering the treatment, Nolan's body went rigid, his back arched off the bed, a strangled cry escaping his lips as the neutralizing agent coursed through his system. Through their psychic link, Arya felt every moment of his pain. Her body convulsed in sympathy, her luminescent patterns flashing in distress. "Hold him down," Elena shouted, fighting to keep the four in place as Nolan thrashed. The Pakled medical staff moved quickly, using their superior strength to gently but firmly restrain him. Suddenly, the medical bay doors hissed open. Ambassador Zara strode in, her normally composed features tight with worry. "Dr. Vasquez, I've brought our most advanced bioregenerative equipment," she said, gesturing to the Pakled medical experts who followed her. "Will it help?" Elena's eyes lit up at the sight of the sleek, unfamiliar devices. "Yes, absolutely. We can use it to counteract the cellular damage." She turned to the Pakled experts. "Please, set it up immediately. We'll integrate it into our treatment protocol." As the combined human-Pekal medical team worked tirelessly, Nolan's condition slowly began to stabilize. His vital signs, which had been wildly erratic, started to return to normal ranges. But the psychic link with Arya remained, weakened but intact. Elena wiped sweat from her brow, allowing herself a moment of relief before turning her attention to Arya. But as she approached the Pakled ambassador, she gasped in surprise. Arya's entire body was glowing with an intensity that rivaled the ship's emergency lights. Pulses of bioluminescence rippled across her skin, matching the frequency of the mineral samples in the containment unit. "Fascinating," Elena murmured, her scientific curiosity momentarily overriding her concern. "It's as if her body is trying to harmonize with the mineral's energy." Zara stepped closer, her eyes wide with wonder. Could this be a natural defense mechanism of our species? Elena's mind raced with possibilities. It could be, and if it is, She trailed off, an idea forming. Ambassador Zara, I have a proposal. It's risky, but it could potentially stabilize the mineral samples and unlock their beneficial properties. Zara listened intently as Elena outlined her plan. The ambassador's expression shifted from skepticism to cautious hope. The potential benefits are significant, she said slowly, but the risk to Arya. I understand your concerns, Elena assured her. We'll take every precaution, but this might be our best chance to neutralize the harmful effects and harness the mineral's power safely. After a moment of tense deliberation, Zara nodded. Very well, Doctor. Proceed with your plan. With utmost care, the medical team prepared to transport Arya to the containment unit, housing the mineral samples. As they moved her, Nolan stirred on his bed, his eyes fluttering open. Through their weakened but persistent link, he sensed Arya's apprehension and excitement. Arya, he whispered, his voice hoarse. Be careful. As they brought Arya closer to the containment unit, her bioluminescent patterns intensified, perfectly matching the mineral's energy signature. The erratic emissions from the samples began to stabilize, forming a harmonious energy field around Arya and the containment unit. Nolan gasped as a surge of sensation flooded through their psychic link, his mind filled with a newfound understanding of the harmonization process. Dr. Vasquez, he called out, his voice stronger now. The containment field. Adjusted to a frequency of 147, 3 megahertz. It'll support Arya's efforts. Elena quickly relayed the instruction to the Packlet engineers, who made the necessary adjustments. The effect was immediate. The ship's systems, which had been fluctuating wildly, suddenly stabilized. The persistent alarms fell silent, replaced by the steady hum of smoothly operating equipment. But the process was a long way to go. As the harmonization continued, Arya's body began to undergo a startling transformation. Her skin took on a crystalline quality, refracting light in mesmerizing patterns. Elena watched in awe, her medical scanner working overtime to document every aspect of this unprecedented metamorphosis. Incredible, she breathed, turning to Zara. Her cellular structure is adapting to the mineral's energy. This could revolutionize our understanding of both Packlet physiology and the mineral itself. As news of the successful stabilization spread throughout the ship, a palpable sense of relief and excitement filled the air. Scientists and engineers from both species began to gather outside the medical bay, eager to begin exploring the potential applications of the now stable mineral. Zara, recognizing the historic nature of the moment, made a ship-wide announcement. Attention all personnel. We are forming a joint human-Pacal research team to study the mineral and its effects on Ambassador Arya and Dr. Morales. This marks a new chapter in our interspecies cooperation. In the medical bay, Nolan and Arya locked eyes across the room, their bodies forever changed but their bonds stronger than ever. As the flagship continued its journey through space, they faced an uncertain future, poised at the center of a scientific breakthrough that could reshape the galaxy. Galaxy as they knew it. The steady hum of the flagship's engines provided a comforting backdrop as they embarked on their journey to the Packlet homeworld. Days later, Nolan and Arya found themselves in a state-of-the-art medical facility unlike anything they had ever seen. The gleaming white walls were adorned with pulsating bioluminescent patterns, a perfect blend of human and Packlet design philosophies. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood at the center of a bustling team of researchers, her eyes alight with a mixture of concern and scientific curiosity. Welcome to the Joint Human-Pacal Research Center, she said, guiding Nolan and Arya to their designated medical pods. We've prepared these chambers specifically for your unique conditions. As Nolan settled into his pod, he felt a strange tingling sensation coursing through his body. He raised his hand, watching in amazement as small arcs of electricity danced between his fingertips. Dr. Vasquez, he called out, his voice a mix of excitement and apprehension. "I think something's happening." Elena rushed over, her medical scanner already in hand. "Fascinating," she murmured, studying the readings. "It appears the partial neutralization of the mineral's effects has triggered some unexpected changes in your nervous system." Across the room, Aria's pod began to glow with a soft, pulsating light. Her skin, now with a crystalline sheen, rippled with colors that shifted from deep blues to vibrant purples. "Aria, how are you feeling?" Elena asked, moving to her side. Aria's voice was filled with wonder as she replied, "I feel connected, as if I can sense the energy flowing around us." Dr. Jun, a prominent Pac-led scientist, joined Elena at Aria's pod. "Her bioluminescent emissions are off the charts," he observed, his tentacles waving excitedly. "We should run some tests to see if they have any practical applications." As the days passed, Nolan and Aria underwent a series of treatments and tests. Nolan discovered he could manipulate small electrical fields, using his newfound ability to interact with technology in ways that left the research team in awe. Aria's crystalline skin continued to evolve, her emotions manifesting as stunning displays of color and light. One evening, as they rested between treatments, Nolan reached out to take Aria's hand. The moment their skin made contact, a visible spark of energy passed between them. Aria's colors shifted to a warm, pulsating gold, while Nolan felt a surge of electricity course through his body. "I can feel you," Aria whispered, her eyes wide. "It's not like before, but it's something." Nolan nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. Their psychic link, though weakened, had been replaced by a profound physical connection. Every touch, every shared glance, felt charged with an otherworldly energy. As news of their progress spread, the research center became a hub of activity. Scientists and diplomats from both species flocked to witness the advancements firsthand. Ambassador Williamsley arrived, his normally stoic expression softening as he observed Nolan and Aria. "Your transformation is remarkable," he said, addressing them both. "We believe you could play a crucial role in furthering human-pacal relations. Would you consider becoming official ambassadors for our continued cooperation?" Nolan and Aria exchanged a look, their bodies unconsciously leaning towards each other. After a moment of silent communication, Nolan spoke. "We'd be honored, Ambassador, but we're still adjusting to our new reality." Lee nodded understanding. "Of course. Take the time you need, but know that your very existence is a powerful symbol of what our species can achieve together." As Nolan and Aria grappled with their new roles and evolving relationship, the research team made breakthrough after breakthrough. The stabilized mineral samples yielded insights that promised to revolutionize technology across multiple fields. However, with progress came new challenges. Reports of various factions showing interest in acquiring mineral samples began to circulate. Captain Marcus Steele, newly assigned to the Research Center's security, paced the facility's command center, his brow furrowed in concentration. "We need to tighten our protocols," he announced to his team. "The mineral's potential in the wrong hands could be catastrophic." As if to underscore his point, intelligence reports began filtering in about increased galactic purist activity. The once defeated group was regrouping, their ideology finding new followers among fringe elements of both human and Pac-led societies. Zara, her face grave, called a meeting with Captain Steele, Nolan, and Aria. "We must form an interspecies task force to counter this threat," she declared. "Captain Steele, we need your military expertise. Nolan, Aria, your unique understanding of the mineral will be invaluable." As they discussed strategy, Nolan felt a familiar surge of energy. He reached for Aria's hand, and as their fingers intertwined, a visible aura of energy enveloped them. Their bodies hummed with power, their senses sharpened to a razor's edge. Dr. Elena Vasquez, who had been observing from the corner, stepped forward. "This is unprecedented," she said, her voice filled with a mixture of awe and concern. "Your proximity seems to be triggering further changes. We need to study this phenomenon more closely." As the meeting concluded, Nolan and Arya found themselves at the center of a whirlwind of activity. Preparations for the task force began in earnest, while Dr. Vasquez and Dr. Jin developed new treatments to stabilize their ever-changing conditions. Amidst the chaos, Nolan and Arya clung to each other, their transformed bodies a constant reminder of their shared journey. As they prepared for bed one night, Arya's skin shimmered with a soft, inviting glow. "Nolan," she whispered, drawing him close. "Whatever happens, whatever we become, we're in this together." As their lips met, the room filled with a dazzling display of light and energy, a testament to the power of their bond and the extraordinary path that lay ahead of them. The soft glow of their combined energy faded, leaving the room in darkness once more. As dawn broke, Nolan and Arya found themselves in Dr. Elena Vasquez's lab, undergoing yet another round of tests. The air hummed with the quiet beeping of medical equipment and the low murmur of voices as Dr. Vasquez conferred with her Pac-led counterpart, Dr. Jin. "We've developed a new treatment protocol," Dr. Vasquez explained, her eyes bright with excitement. "It involves controlled exposure to the mineral's energy. Our goal is to help you harness your abilities while preventing any further unpredictable changes." Nolan nodded, his brow furrowed in concentration as he extended his hand. A small arc of electricity danced between his fingertips, more controlled than before. "I think I'm getting the hang of this," he said, a hint of pride in his voice. Dr. Jun's tentacles waved in approval. "Excellent progress, Nolan. Now, let's see if we can push it further." Under the watchful eyes of the research team, Nolan focused intently. The air around his hand shimmered, and suddenly a small, translucent bubble appeared. It hovered for a moment before expanding into a visible force field. "Incredible," Dr. Vasquez breathed, furiously taking notes on her tablet. "It seems your electrical manipulation abilities have evolved." Nolan's face broke into a grin, but it quickly faded as he struggled to maintain control. The force field pulsed, growing larger and more unstable. "I can't," he started to say, just as the field expanded rapidly, knocking over a nearby tray of equipment with a resounding crash. Arya rushed to his side, her crystalline skin shimmering with concern. As she touched his arm, the force field dissipated instantly. "Are you all right?" she asked, her voice soft. Dr. Vasquez frowned, surveying the damage. "This is concerning. We'll need to work on control exercises before the conference." While Nolan worked on mastering his new ability, Arya underwent her own series of tests. Her skin, now a marvel of crystalline patterns, seemed to pulse with an inner light. "Fascinating," Dr. Jin murmured, running a scanner over Arya's arm. "Your cellular structure is now capable of absorbing and redirecting various forms of energy." To demonstrate, Dr. Vasquez directed a beam of solar radiation at Arya. Her skin sparkled brilliantly, absorbing the energy. A moment later, she extended her hand, and a small device on the nearby table powered on. "You've essentially become a living solar panel," Dr. Vasquez explained, her voice filled with awe. "The potential applications for energy production are staggering." However, this new ability came with its own challenges. As they moved through the facility, Arya winced, her skin flickering erratically. "The equipment," she said, gesturing to the dense clusters of electronic devices. "It's uncomfortable." Dr. Jin nodded sympathetically. "Your heightened sensitivity to electromagnetic fields is an unfortunate side effect. We'll need to find a way to mitigate this before the conference." As the days passed, Nolan and Arya's training intensified. Their intimate moments became a subject of scientific fascination as their combined energy signatures produced localized phenomena that defied explanation. Objects would levitate around them, and swirling auroras of color filled the air. Ambassador Williamsley visited the facility, his face a mixture of concern and excitement. "I've arranged for a series of public appearances," he informed them. "We need to prepare you for the conference and gauge public reaction to your unique situation." Their first appearance was at a PAC-led science symposium. Nolan and Arya stood before the crowd, their nervousness palpable. As Arya began to speak, Nolan felt a familiar tingling in his hands. Before he could react, a shimmering force field sprang to life, separating them from the startled audience. Murmurs of alarm rippled through the crowd. Arya placed a calming hand on Nolan's arm, and the field slowly dissipated. Ambassador Lee quickly stepped in, smoothing over the incident with practiced diplomacy. Later that evening, Captain Marcus Steele called an urgent meeting. His face was grim as he addressed the team. "We've uncovered intel suggesting the Galactic Purists are planning to disrupt the Earth Conference," he reported. "They've acquired unstable mineral samples and are developing weapons designed to target individuals with mineral-enhanced physiologies." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Dr. Vasquez was the first to speak. "We need to develop protective measures for Nolan and Arya," she said firmly. "Some kind of containment suits to control their energy emissions and shield them from potential attacks." Over the next weeks, Nolan and Arya divided their time between public appearances, training sessions, and fittings for their new containment suits. The sleek, form-fitting garments were marvels of engineering, designed to help them modulate their abilities while providing protection. As the conference drew near, the pressure mounted. Nolan and Arya found themselves at the center of a media frenzy, their every move scrutinized. They attended diplomatic briefings, learning to navigate the complex political landscape they would soon face. "You've become symbols of human-pacal cooperation," Ambassador Lee reminded them during one such session. "But that also makes you targets. We must be prepared for every contingency." A week before the conference, Dr. Jin burst into the lab, his tentacles waving excitedly. "We've done it!" he exclaimed. "We've synthesized a stable form of the mineral in small quantities." The news was met with mixed reactions. While the scientific implications were tremendous, it also raised new security concerns. Captain Steele immediately increased security protocols, his team working around the clock to ensure the safety of the conference and its attendees. As final preparations were underway, a routine security sweep revealed traces of the unstable mineral compound in the conference venue's ventilation system. Captain Steele ordered an immediate covert operation to neutralize the threat. Nolan and Arya, upon hearing the news, volunteered to assist. "Our abilities could be crucial in containing and neutralizing the compound," Arya argued. After much debate, Captain Steele reluctantly agreed. Nolan and Arya donned their containment suits, joining a specialized team as they entered the maze-like ventilation system. As they navigated the narrow shafts, Nolan's force fields proved invaluable in containing the spread of the unstable particles. Arya's energy absorption capabilities allowed her to safely neutralize the compound wherever they encountered it. Hours later, they emerged, tired but triumphant. The immediate threat had been neutralized, but the close calls served as a stark reminder of the challenges that lay ahead. On the eve of the conference, Nolan and Arya stood before a mirror in their suite, making final adjustments to their formal attire and containment suits. Their hands brushed, creating a small burst of energy that briefly illuminated the room. They exchanged a look, a mixture of willpower and apprehension in their eyes. Tomorrow, they would step onto the world stage, carrying the weight of human-pacal relations on their shoulders. The future was uncertain, but they faced it together, their unique bond a testament to the potential of interspecies cooperation. As they turned to leave the room, a soft chime alerted them to an incoming message. Captain Steele's voice crackled over the comm system. Final security briefing in 5 minutes. We have new intelligence regarding the Galactic Purist plans. Plans. Nolan and Arya exchanged a concerned glance before hurrying to the meeting room. Captain Steele's face was grim as they entered. We've uncovered new intelligence about the Galactic Purist intentions, he said, his voice low and urgent. They're planning a coordinated attack on the conference tomorrow. Nolan felt a familiar tingle of electricity dance across his skin. What are we dealing with, Captain? Multiple operatives, likely armed with those mineral destabilizing devices we encountered earlier, Steele replied, bringing up a holographic map of the conference center. We believe they'll try to infiltrate key areas, including the main auditorium and the ventilation system. As the team discussed strategies, Nolan and Arya donned their containment suits, the specialized fabric humming softly as it interfaced with their transformed bodies. The couple's preparation was interrupted by a gentle knock at the door. Dr. Elena Vasquez entered, her tablet clutched tightly in her hands. I've made some last-minute adjustments to your suits, she explained, tapping a series of commands into her device. These should help regulate your energy emissions more effectively, especially given the heightened mineral presence in the conference center. The next morning arrived with a palpable tension in the air. Nolan and Arya stood at the entrance of the massive auditorium, taking in the sea of faces before them. Thousands of human and pack-led delegates filled the space, their excited chatter creating a low, constant hum. As they made their way to the stage, Nolan noticed a faint shimmer of energy in the air, a result of the mineral traces reacting to their presence. He exchanged a worried glance with Arya, whose crystalline skin seemed to pulse in response to the phenomenon. Ambassador Williamsley approached them, his face a mask of calm diplomacy. Remember, he said quietly, you're not just speakers today. You're living proof of what our species can achieve together. Nolan nodded, taking a deep breath as he stepped up to the podium. The containment suit felt snug against his skin, a constant reminder of the delicate balance they needed to maintain. As he began his address, focusing on the potential benefits of human-pacal cooperation, he could feel the energy building within him. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed delegates, Nolan began, his voice carrying across the hushed auditorium. We stand at the threshold of a new era of interspecies collaboration. Suddenly, a commotion erupted near the back of the hall. Several individuals sprang into action, activating handheld devices that emitted a high-pitched whine. Nolan felt an immediate wave of discomfort wash over him, his control over his abilities wavering. Arya stepped forward, her eyes narrowing as she assessed the situation. Without hesitation, she extended her hands, her crystalline skin shimmering as she began to absorb the harmful emissions. The effort was visible on her face, but she stood firm, creating a buffer between the attackers and the startled delegates. Nolan, fighting through the discomfort, focused his energy on generating a protective force field. A shimmering barrier sprang to life, enveloping the stage and the front rows of the auditorium. Gasps of awe and fear rippled through the crowd as they witnessed the display of power. Captain Steele and his security team moved swiftly, engaging the Galactic Purist operatives in a tense standoff. The captain's voice crackled over the comm system. Maintain your positions. We're containing the threat. As the security team worked to neutralize the attackers, Nolan and Arya's combined efforts became the focal point of the event. Their actions, broadcast on massive screens throughout the auditorium and to millions of viewers across Earth and the pack-led homeworld, served as a powerful demonstration of unity and cooperation. Ambassador Lee, seizing the moment, took to the stage. What you've just witnessed, he announced, his voice steady and clear, is the true potential of our alliance. In the face of those who would divide us, Nolan and Arya stand as beacons of our shared future. As the immediate threat subsided, Dr. Vasquez and Dr. Zhun joined Nolan and Arya on stage. The two scientists, their faces flushed with excitement, began to present their latest findings on the mineral's properties. Our research indicates that this substance could revolutionize space travel, Dr. Jin explained, his tentacles gesticulating enthusiastically. The energy potential alone is staggering. Dr. Vasquez nodded in agreement. Moreover, the applications in medicine and energy production are just beginning to be understood. With proper development, we could be looking at a new age of technological advancement. The announcement sent a wave of excitement through the delegates. Discussions broke out across the auditorium, with representatives from both species eagerly sharing ideas and proposing joint ventures. As the first day of the conference drew to a close, Nolan and Arya found themselves at the center of a whirlwind of attention. Delegates approached them with questions, proposals, and words of admiration. The couple, though exhausted, met each interaction with grace and enthusiasm. Finally able to retreat to their private quarters, Nolan and Arya carefully removed their containment suits. The moment the suits came off, their bodies reacted to each other's proximity. Tendrils of energy danced between them, illuminating the room in a dazzling display. Arya reached out, her fingers intertwining with Nolan's. "We did it," she said softly, her voice filled with a mixture of relief and wonder. Before Nolan could respond, an urgent message flashed on their communication panel. Captain Steele's face appeared, his expression grave. "We have a situation," he began, his voice tense. "Intelligence reports indicate the galactic purists are planning a larger attack. We need to meet immediately to discuss our options." Nolan and Arya exchanged a determined look. Their brief moment of respite was over. As they prepared to face this new threat, they knew that their actions in the coming days would shape the future of human-Peggle relations and the fate of the mineral's transformative potential. The challenge ahead was daunting, but together, they were ready to face whatever came next. Nolan and Arya exchanged a determined look before heading to meet Captain Steele. As they walked briskly through the corridors, the weight of their responsibilities settled upon them. The conference's second day dawned with a mix of anticipation and tension. Nolan and Arya arrived early at the preparation room, where Dr. Vasquez and Dr. Jun were waiting with their newly recalibrated containment suits. "We've made significant improvements," Dr. Vasquez explained as she helped Arya into her suit. "These should provide much better regulation of your energy emissions." Nolan flexed his fingers inside the sleek gloves. "It feels different, more responsive." Dr. Jin nodded, his tentacles moving in excited patterns. "We've incorporated adaptive nanomaterials. They should help you maintain finer control over your abilities." As they finished suiting up, Captain Steele entered the room, his face etched with concern. "We've received new intel," he said, activating a holographic display. "The galactic purists are planning something big. We need to be on high alert." Steele outlined the enhanced security measures, emphasizing the need for vigilance. Nolan and Arya listened intently, acutely aware of the pivotal role they would play in the day's events. The conference hall buzzed with activity as delegates from Earth and the Pac-led homeworld took their seats. Ambassador Lee approached Nolan and Arya, who stood waiting in the wings. "Remember," he said softly, "your presentation isn't just about showcasing your abilities. It's about demonstrating the potential of our alliance." Nolan nodded, feeling the familiar tingle of energy beneath his skin. "We're ready." As they were introduced, Nolan and Arya stepped onto the stage, their containment suits gleaming under the bright lights. The audience fell silent, all eyes fixed on the unique couple. "Ladies and gentlemen," Nolan began, his voice steady, "we stand before you as living proof of what can be achieved when our species work together." Arya continued, her crystalline skin shimmering. "Our transformation has granted us abilities beyond imagination, but it has also given us a unique perspective on the potential of human-Peggle cooperation." They proceeded to demonstrate their powers, carefully controlled and choreographed. Nolan created a shimmering force field that expanded to envelop the entire stage, drawing gasps from the audience. Arya then absorbed the energy from a series of specially designed projectors, her body glowing with captured light before she redirected it in a dazzling display. As the presentation reached its climax, a sudden alarm blared through the conference center. Captain Steele's voice crackled over the comm system. Security alert. Unstable mineral energy detected in the lower levels. Nolan and Arya exchanged a quick glance before addressing the now murmuring crowd. "Please remain calm," Nolan announced. "Security personnel will guide you to safe areas." As the delegates were ushered out, Nolan and Arya approached Captain Steele. "We can help," Arya said firmly. "Our abilities make us uniquely suited to track the energy source." After a moment's hesitation, Steele nodded. "All right, but you'll have a security detail with you at all times." The couple, flanked by a team of armed guards, made their way to the maintenance areas. The air grew thick and humid as they descended, the hum of machinery growing louder. "I can feel it," Nolan murmured, his skin prickling beneath the containment suit. "The energy. It's getting stronger." Arya nodded, her eyes glowing faintly. "This way," she said, leading them down a narrow corridor. They soon found themselves facing a hidden door, cleverly disguised as part of the wall. Nolan focused his energy, creating a force field that peeled the door away, revealing a secret laboratory beyond. Inside, they discovered a group of Galactic Purist operatives working feverishly over complex equipment. Vials of glowing mineral samples lined the walls, pulsing with unstable energy. "Intruders!" one of the operatives shouted, reaching for a weapon. The security team sprang into action, engaging the Purists in a fierce firefight. Nolan extended his force fields, shielding their allies from enemy fire. Arya moved with fluid grace, her body absorbing and neutralizing the energy weapons blasts. As the battle intensified, stray shots caused damage to the laboratory equipment. A canister of processed mineral ruptured, releasing a cloud of shimmering particles into the air. Nolan felt an immediate surge of power, his force fields expanding beyond his control. "Arya," he called out, his voice strained. "Something's wrong." Arya's crystalline skin pulsed with blinding light as she struggled to contain the sudden influx of energy. I can't control it." The security team and the subdued Purist operatives alike backed away, awestruck and terrified by the display of raw power. In the control room above, Dr. Vasquez and Dr. Jun watched the scene unfold with mounting concern. "Their containment suits can't handle this level of energy," Dr. Vasquez said, her fingers flying over the controls. "We need to stabilize them fast." Dr. Jun's tentacles waved frantically as he analyzed the data. "Wait, look at the energy patterns. They're synchronizing." Dr. Vasquez's eyes widened in realization. "Nolan, Arya," she called over the comm. "Focus on each other. Use your connection to balance the energy." Through the haze of overwhelming power, Nolan and Arya heard the instruction. Their eyes met, and instinctively, they reached for each other. As their hands clasped, a surge of energy flowed between them, creating a feedback loop that began to stabilize their out-of-control abilities. The air around them shimmered and pulsed as their energies intertwined, forming a swirling vortex that contained the volatile mineral particles. The laboratory equipment creaked and groaned under the strain but held. Slowly, gradually, Nolan and Arya regained control. The blinding light faded, and the force fields contracted to a manageable size. They stood at the center of the now-quiet laboratory, still holding hands, their containment suits smoking slightly from the energy discharge. Captain Steele's voice broke the silence. "Status report." Nolan took a deep breath. "Threat neutralized, Captain. But I think we've made an unexpected discovery." As they made their way back to the main conference hall, Nolan and Arya could feel the eyes of everyone upon them. Their containment suits, despite the strain they had endured, still glowed faintly with residual energy. Ambassador Lee met them at the entrance, his face a mixture of concern and excitement. "Are you all right? We felt the energy surge up here." Arya nodded, her crystalline skin still shimmering. "We're fine, Ambassador, but I think we have a lot to discuss." Lee's eyes gleamed with understanding. He turned to address the reconvened delegates, his voice carrying across the hushed auditorium. "Ladies and gentlemen, what we have witnessed today is more than just a foiled attack. It is a testament to the untapped potential of our alliance." As Lee spoke, weaving a narrative of cooperation and scientific advancement, Nolan and Arya stood side by side, their hands still clasped. They had faced a trial by fire and emerged stronger, but both knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in their journey. The conference hall buzzed with excited chatter as delegates from both species began to discuss the implications of what they had seen. Plans for joint research initiatives were already being formulated, with Nolan and Arya at the center of many of these discussions. As the day's events wound down, Dr. Vasquez approached the couple with a tablet in hand. "We've been analyzing the data from your containment suits," she said, her voice tinged with excitement. "The way your energies interacted, it's opening up entirely new avenues of research." Nolan and Arya exchanged a look, feeling the weight of their responsibility grow. They were no longer just symbols of human-pacal cooperation. They had become the key to unlocking the true potential of the mysterious mineral. As they prepared for the conference's final phase, neither Nolan nor Arya noticed the faint shimmer in the air around them, the first sign that the altered mineral particles were beginning to spread through the ventilation system, setting the stage for challenges yet to come. Come, little did they know that the very air they breathed was now charged with potential for change. As the conference drew to a close, Nolan and Arya prepared for their departure to the Joint Human-Pacal Research Facility. The excitement of their recent breakthroughs mingled with a sense of anticipation for the work that lay ahead. "Ready to go?" Nolan asked, adjusting his containment suit. Arya nodded, her crystalline skin catching the light. "Always. Though I can't shake this feeling that something's different." They boarded the transport vessel, joined by Dr. Elena Vasquez and a team of scientists eager to continue their research. As the ship lifted off, Nolan felt an uncomfortable tightness in his suit. He shifted, trying to find a more comfortable position. "Is everything all right?" Dr. Vasquez asked, noticing his discomfort. "Just a bit snug," Nolan replied, frowning. "Probably nothing to worry about." But as the journey progressed, both Nolan and Arya experienced increasingly erratic behavior from their containment suits. The material seemed to pulse and shift, alternating between constricting tightly and expanding loosely. Arya gasped as her suit suddenly constricted around her midsection. "Elena, something's wrong," she called out, her voice strained. Dr. Vasquez rushed over, her eyes widening as she saw the suit's bizarre behavior. She quickly accessed the diagnostic panel on each suit, her fingers flying over the controls. "This doesn't make sense," she muttered, brow furrowed. "The energy readings are all over the place. It's as if the suits are trying to compensate for massive fluctuations in your internal energy levels." Nolan gritted his teeth as he felt a surge of power course through him. His force field flickered to life involuntarily, pushing against the confines of the suit. "Can you stabilize them?" Dr. Vasquez worked feverishly, adjusting settings and rerouting power. "I'm trying, but this is unlike anything we've seen before. We need to get you to the research facility as soon as possible." The rest of the journey was tense, with Nolan and Arya struggling to maintain control of their abilities as their suits malfunctioned. By the time they arrived at the facility, both were visibly exhausted. A team of human and pack-led scientists, led by Dr. Jun, met them as they disembarked. The Pacald's tentacles waved in agitation as he took in their condition. Quickly, to the medical bay, Dr. Jin instructed, his multifaceted eyes reflecting concern. In the state-of-the-art medical bay, Nolan and Arya underwent a battery of tests. Scanners hummed, and holographic displays flickered with streams of data as the scientists worked to understand what was happening. Dr. Vasquez's eyes widened as she analyzed the results. This is incredible. Their physiologies have undergone further changes. It seems the exposure to those unstable mineral particles during the confrontation with the galactic purists has triggered a new phase of transformation. Nolan flexed his hand, watching in amazement as a small construct of pure energy formed above his palm. "I can create solid objects now," he said, his voice a mix of awe and concern. Arya, meanwhile, found her attention drawn to a blank wall. As she focused, her crystalline skin began to shift, taking on the color and texture of the surface. Within moments, she had become nearly invisible against the background. "Fascinating," Dr. Jin murmured, his tentacles curling in excitement. "It appears your abilities have evolved beyond our initial projections." As the team worked to document and understand these new developments, an urgent message came through from Ambassador Lee. His holographic image appeared, his expression grave. "We have a situation," Lee began. "Reports are coming in of conference attendees experiencing unusual symptoms. Some humans are displaying minor telekinetic abilities, while Packles are reporting enhanced cognitive functions." Dr. Vasquez's face paled. The altered mineral particles. They must have spread through the ventilation system during the incident. Lee nodded. "We've implemented a quarantine protocol for all attendees. Nolan, Arya, we need your help. You're uniquely qualified to assist in containing and studying the situation." Nolan and Arya exchanged a determined look. Despite their own ongoing transformation, they knew they had a responsibility to help those affected by this unexpected turn of events. "We're on it, Ambassador," Nolan replied. "What's our first step?" "We've set up a containment area for affected individuals," Lee explained. "Your primary task will be to work with them, helping them understand and control their newfound abilities." As Nolan and Arya prepared to face this new challenge, they were unaware of the other forces at play. Jerome Blackwood, a charismatic human entrepreneur who had attended the conference, was already formulating plans to capitalize on the situation. His newly awakened telepathic abilities gave him an edge as he began to gather supporters for his vision of a mineral-enhanced future. Meanwhile, Captain Marcus Steele's security team had uncovered disturbing evidence of galactic purist infiltration within the quarantine zone. The extremist group saw the chaos as an opportunity to further their anti-cooperation agenda. As Nolan and Arya stepped into the containment area, they were met with a mix of fear, confusion, and excitement from the affected individuals. A young human woman approached them, her hands shaking as she levitated a small object in front of her. "Please," she said, her voice quavering. "Can you help me control this?" Arya placed a reassuring hand on the woman's shoulder, her touch cool and comforting. "We're here to help. You're not alone in this." Nolan nodded, creating a small energy construct to demonstrate. "We've been through similar changes. Together, we'll figure this out." As they began working with the affected individuals, Nolan and Arya felt a deepening connection between themselves. Their enhanced physiologies seemed to resonate on a fundamental level, allowing them to share sensations and emotions with an intensity they had never experienced before. They exchanged a look, silently acknowledging the growing bond between them. But there was no time to explore this new facet of their relationship. The crisis demanded their full attention, and they knew that the challenges they faced were only beginning. Outside the containment area, Dr. Vasquez and Dr. Jun worked tirelessly to understand the full implications of the widespread mineral exposure. Their research held the key to managing this unprecedented situation, but time was running short. As night fell on the research facility, tensions continued to rise. The true scale of the mineral crisis was only beginning to unfold, and Nolan and Arya found themselves at the center of a storm that threatened to reshape the future of human-Pekal relations, and perhaps the entire galaxy. The weight of their responsibility settled heavily on Nolan and Arya as they exchanged a determined glance. "We need to act fast," Nolan said, his voice firm. "These enhanced individuals need guidance, and we're in the best position to provide it." Arya nodded, her crystalline skin shimmering with renewed purpose. "Agreed. We should propose a task force to Ambassador Lee and Captain Steele immediately." Their suggestion was met with swift approval. Within hours, the Mineral Crisis Response Team was formed, with Nolan and Arya appointed as co-leaders. The Joint Human-Pekal Research Facility became their base of operations, a hub of frantic activity as scientists and security personnel worked to address the growing crisis. Dr. Vasquez approached them, her face drawn with concern. "We receive reports of a disturbance in a nearby human colony. A group of enhanced individuals is causing havoc." Captain Steele's holographic image appeared, his expression grim. "The situation is critical. The group is led by a man named Victor Reeves, who's developed powerful telekinetic abilities. They've taken control of the colony's vital resources." Nolan and Arya exchanged a look of purpose. "We'll handle it," Arya said, her voice resolute. As they boarded the transport with a select team from the MCRT, Nolan felt a surge of nervous energy. He created a small energy construct in his palm, watching it pulse and shift. "Let's hope we can connect with these people. We know better than anyone what they're going through." Upon arrival at the colony, they were met with chaos. Buildings were damaged, debris floated in the air, and panicked colonists ran for cover. In the center of the destruction stood Victor Reeves, his eyes wild with a mix of fear and exhilaration as he manipulated objects around him. Nolan sprang into action, creating energy barriers to contain the rogue enhanced individuals. Arya utilized her camouflage ability, blending seamlessly with her surroundings to gather intelligence on Victor's plans. As they worked to stabilize the situation, Nolan approached Victor. "I know you're scared," he called out, his voice calm but firm. "We've been through this too. Let us help you." Victor's eyes darted between Nolan and Arya, recognition dawning on his face. "You're like us," he said, his voice trembling. "How do you control it?" Arya stepped forward, her camouflage fading. "It takes time and practice, but it's possible. We can show you how." Over the next few hours, Nolan and Arya worked tirelessly with Victor and his followers, demonstrating techniques to channel and control their newfound abilities. Slowly, the chaos in the colony began to subside. As they helped the enhanced individuals, Nolan noticed a pattern in their behavior. "Something's not right," he muttered to Arya. "This fear, this aggression. It feels manufactured." Arya nodded, her eyes narrowing. "I've found something. Communications logs indicating outside influence. The galactic purists have been stoking tensions here." Their discovery led to a galaxy-wide investigation into galactic purist activities. As Nolan and Arya prepared to return to the research facility, they knew their work was just getting started. Back at the facility, they were greeted by Dr. Vasquez and Dr. Jun. The scientists' excitement was palpable. "We've made a breakthrough," Dr. Vasquez announced, her eyes shining. "The long-term effects of mineral enhancement. They're more significant than we thought." Dr. Jun's tentacles waved in agitation. "The traits may be passed down to offspring. This could change the course of both our species' evolution." As Nolan and Arya absorbed this information, an alert sounded. Jerome Blackwood, a charismatic figure who had embraced his newfound abilities, was broadcasting a message across the galaxy. "Fellow enhanced individuals," Blackwood's voice rang out, "we are the future. It's time we take control of our destiny." Nolan and Arya exchanged a worried glance. The mineral crisis was evolving, and they would need to adapt quickly to face the challenges ahead. "We need to address the Council," Arya said, her voice firm. "They need to understand what we're dealing with." Nolan nodded, creating a small energy construct that pulsed between them. "Together, we'll show them the potential for cooperation. It's our best chance at navigating this crisis." As they prepared for their testimony, neither Nolan nor Arya noticed the shadowy figure watching from afar. Krell, a radical galactic purist, observed their every move, plotting his next attack on the MCRT facilities. The mineral crisis was escalating, and Nolan and Arya found themselves at the center of a storm that threatened to reshape the galaxy. Their journey was just getting started, and the true test of their abilities and their bond was yet to come. Come. The weight of their responsibility settled heavily on Nolan and Arya as they exchanged a determined glance. "We can't stay here indefinitely," Nolan said, running a hand through his hair. "These people need our help, but there are others out there struggling with the same issues." Arya nodded, her crystalline skin shimmering under the facility's lights. "You're right. We need to reach more people. Show them that coexistence is possible." Their decision to embark on a galaxy-wide tour came swiftly, with Ambassador Lee and Captain Steele providing their full support. Within days, Nolan and Arya found themselves on a transport bound for Novatera, a human colony known for its divided stance on mineral enhancement. As their ship descended through Novatera's atmosphere, Nolan peered out the viewport, taking in the sight of the sprawling colony below. Fields of green stretched to the horizon, dotted with clusters of sleek, modern buildings. "Looks peaceful from up here," he remarked. Arya joined him at the window, her eyes narrowing as she focused on the spaceport ahead. "I'm not so sure about that," she said, pointing to a gathering crowd. As they disembarked, the cacophony of voices hit them like a wave. Protesters lined the edges of the landing pad, their shouts echoing across the open space. "We deserve enhancement," one group chanted, waving signs demanding access to the mineral technology. "Keep our genes pure," another section of the crowd countered, their faces contorted with anger. Nolan instinctively moved closer to Arya, his muscles tensing as he prepared to create an energy barrier if needed. Arya's skin rippled, ready to camouflage at a moment's notice. A harried-looking official pushed through the crowd to greet them. "Welcome to Novatera," she said, her voice strained. "I'm Governor Ilara Chun. I apologize for the enthusiastic reception." "We've seen worse," Arya assured her, as they made their way through the throng of protesters. The tension in the air was palpable as they entered the colony's main auditorium for their presentation. Nolan scanned the packed room, noting the clear divide between those wearing pro-enhancement insignias and those sporting anti-enhancement symbols. As they took the stage, a hush fell over the crowd. Nolan stepped forward, his voice calm and steady. "We're here to talk about unity," he began, "about finding common ground in the face of unprecedented change." Arya continued, her crystalline form catching the light. "Change can be frightening, but it also offers opportunities for growth and understanding." Their words seemed to resonate, but halfway through the presentation, a commotion erupted near the back of the auditorium. A group of people stood up, shouting and pushing their way toward the stage. "Lies!" one man yelled. "You're trying to force this abomination on us all." Nolan reacted instantly, throwing up an energy barrier that stretched across the front of the stage. The shimmering field hummed with power, stopping the aggressors in their tracks. Simultaneously, Arya's form shimmered and vanished. Using her camouflage ability, she slipped unnoticed through the crowd, identifying the leaders of the disruption and relaying their positions to the security team. Within minutes, the situation was under control. As the troublemakers were escorted out, Nolan lowered the energy barrier, his expression a mix of relief and concern. "I think that's enough for today," Governor Chin announced, stepping onto the stage. "We'll reconvene tomorrow to discuss this further." In the aftermath of the incident, Nolan and Arya found themselves in a private meeting with the colony's leadership council. The room was tense, filled with the low murmur of worried voices. "What you proposed is ambitious," Counselor Ravi said, leaning forward in his chair. "A local MCRT branch could provide much-needed support, but it's also likely to face significant opposition." Arya's voice was firm as she replied, "Opposition is to be expected, but the alternative is continued conflict and misunderstanding. We've seen firsthand the dangers of leaving enhanced individuals without proper guidance and support." Nolan nodded in agreement. The MCRT can serve as a bridge between enhanced and non-enhanced communities. It's not about promoting enhancement, but about ensuring safety and fostering cooperation. After hours of debate, the council reached a decision. Governor Chen's face showed signs of fatigue, but her voice was clear as she announced, "We'll implement a pilot program for the MCRT branch. It's a small step, but an important one." As they left the council chambers, Nolan and Arya shared a moment of quiet triumph. Their success on Novatera, while modest, felt like a significant milestone in their mission. Their celebration was short-lived, however, as Nolan's communicator chirped with an incoming message. Dr. Elena Vasquez's holographic image appeared, her expression a mix of excitement and concern. "Nolan, Arya, we've got some new data on your conditions," she said without preamble. "The changes in your physiologies are accelerating. Arya, your skin is now capable of absorbing and storing solar energy. And Nolan, you're developing the ability to manipulate gravitational fields on a small scale." Arya's eyes widened at the news. "That explains the odd sensations I've been experiencing in sunlight," she mused, examining her crystalline skin with newfound interest. Nolan flexed his fingers, feeling the subtle pull of gravity around them. "This could be incredibly useful," he said, his mind already racing with possibilities. Dr. Vasquez's voice cut through their wonderment. "I strongly advise you to return to the research facility for a full examination. These changes are happening faster than we anticipated." Nolan and Arya exchanged a look, silently communicating their thoughts. After a moment, Arya turned back to the hologram. "We understand your concerns, Doctor, but we can't abandon our mission now. We'll agree to remote monitoring and promise to return if things worsen." As they ended the call, Nolan and Arya felt the weight of their decision. They knew the risks they were taking, but the importance of their work outweighed their personal concerns. "Next stop, Cora 7, Nolan said, his voice tinged with a mix of excitement and apprehension. "I hear they're having some issues with their miners." Arya nodded, her skin shimmering with renewed purpose. "Then let's not keep them waiting. We've got a galaxy to unite." As their transport lifted off from Novatera, neither Nolan nor Arya could shake the feeling that their journey was about to take an even more challenging turn. The mineral crisis was just the beginning, and their evolving abilities would soon be put to the ultimate test. As their transport approached Cora 7, Nolan and Arya's communicators blared to life with an urgent message. The research facility was under attack. "We need to turn back," Nolan said, his jaw clenching as he processed the information scrolling across his screen. Arya nodded, her crystalline skin pulsing with nervous energy. The galactic purists. They've finally made their move. The pilot swiftly altered course, pushing the engines to their limits as they raced back to the facility. As they neared their destination, the sight that greeted them sent a chill through both Nolan and Arya. A swarm of enemy ships surrounded the research complex, their weapons leaving scorch marks on the reinforced outer walls. The facility's alarms echoed across the landing pad as Nolan and Arya disembarked. They sprinted towards the main building, narrowly avoiding a barrage of enemy fire that peppered the ground around them. Inside the command center, they found Dr. Vasquez coordinating the defense efforts. Her face was drawn with tension, but her eyes lit up as she saw them enter. "Thank goodness you're here," she said, gesturing to a holographed display of the facility. "We're holding for now, but our shields won't last much longer." Nolan stepped forward, his eyes scanning the tactical readouts. "We'll take point on the defense. Arya, let's put our new abilities to the test." They moved swiftly to their positions, Nolan at the perimeter and Arya interfacing with the power grid. As Nolan extended his hands, he felt the subtle tug of gravity responding to his will. With careful concentration, he began to create a series of fluctuating gravitational fields around the facility. The effect was immediate. Incoming projectiles veered off course, their trajectories bent by the invisible forces Nolan manipulated. Enemy ships struggled to maintain stable flight paths, their pilots visibly confused by the shifting gravitational landscape. Meanwhile, Arya placed her hands on a nearby power conduit, her skin lighting up as she channeled energy through her body. She focused intently, redirecting power from non-critical systems to boost the facility's shields. The protective barrier around the complex flared brightly, easily deflecting the next wave of galactic purist weapons fire. For a moment, it seemed they had gained the upper hand. But then a new threat emerged. A sleek, dark ship detached from the main galactic purist fleet, its hull dripping with an unfamiliar weapon. Energy spike detected. Dr. Vasquez's voice crackled over the comms. "Unknown weapon charging." The ship fired, releasing a pulse of sickly green energy that washed over the facility. Nolan felt his control over gravity slip, the carefully maintained fields around the perimeter fluctuating wildly. Beside him, Arya cried out in pain as surges of absorbed energy threatened to overwhelm her system. "It's a mineral-based disruptor," Dr. Vasquez's voice cut through the chaos. "Hold on, I'm adjusting our containment fields to shield you." A shimmering bubble of energy enveloped Nolan and Arya, dulling the effects of the disruptor. Slowly, they regained control of their abilities, the discomfort fading as the protective field stabilized around them. Above the facility, streaks of light announced the arrival of reinforcements. Captain Marcus Steele's voice filled the command channel. "This is the USS Horizon. We're engaging the enemy fleet now." The space battle unfolded with breathtaking speed. Steele's ships employed tactics clearly inspired by Nolan and Arya's abilities, using gravity-assisted maneuvers to outflank the Purist vessels and energy-absorbing shields to weather their attacks. As the tide of battle began to turn, a new complication arose. A small, unmarked ship approached the facility, hailing on all frequencies. "This is Jerome Blackwood," a familiar voice announced. "I have critical information about the Purist plans. Request immediate entry to the facility." Captain Steele's response was swift and wary. "Blackwood, your timing is suspicious. You may enter, but under heavy guard." Minutes later, Blackwood strode into the command center, flanked by security personnel. His eyes gleamed with an unsettling intensity as he addressed the room. "My enhanced abilities have allowed me to intercept fragments of Purist communications," he stated. "I know the location of their command ship and details of a plan to use a massive mineral-based weapon against all enhanced individuals in this sector." Nolan and Arya exchanged a glance, their minds racing with the implications of this information. They knew what needed to be done. "We need to take out that weapon," Nolan said, his voice firm with perseverance. Arya nodded in agreement. "Our abilities make us the best candidates for an infiltration mission." Despite protests from Dr. Vasquez about the potential risks to their evolving physiologies, Captain Steele approved their plan. A specially modified stealth shuttle was quickly prepared, its hull infused with mineral particles to withstand the extreme forces they would encounter. As they prepared for departure, Dr. Jin approached with two sleek, form-fitting suits. "These are designed to stabilize your bodies during the mission," he explained, his tentacles carefully adjusting the mineral-infused fibers. Nolan and Arya donned the suits, feeling an immediate resonance with the material. As their hands brushed against each other, a localized field of swirling energy An altered gravity formed between them, a physical manifestation of their bond. They boarded the shuttle, their bodies humming with power and anticipation. As the hangar doors opened, revealing the chaotic space battle beyond, Nolan engaged the gravity drive. The shuttle shot forward at near-relativistic speeds, Aria's energy absorption maintaining their structural integrity under the immense forces. As they approached the Purist command ship, Nolan created a gravitational lens, bending light around their vessel to render it nearly invisible. Aria fine-tuned her energy absorption, masking their heat signature and allowing them to slip past the enemy fleet undetected. With a soft thud, their shuttle docked with Krell's massive ship. Nolan and Aria shared a final look, their evolved bodies resonating with the challenge ahead. As the airlock hissed open, they stepped forward into the heart of enemy territory, ready to confront whatever awaited them within. As the airlock hissed open, Nolan and Aria stepped into the heart of enemy territory, their bodies humming with newfound power. The interior of Krell's command ship was a maze of sleek metal corridors, bathed in an eerie blue glow from recessed lighting panels. Aria's skin shimmered, adapting to match the metallic sheen of their surroundings. "Ready?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Nolan nodded, his fingers flexing as he reached out with his gravitational senses. "Let's move!" They glided through the corridors, their footsteps silent as Nolan manipulated their weight. Galactic Purist patrols passed by, oblivious to the intruders in their midst. Aria's camouflage held steady, bending light around them to render them nearly invisible. As they approached the security checkpoint, Nolan felt the subtle vibrations of approaching guards. He signaled to Aria, who nodded in understanding. In one fluid motion, Nolan extended his hand, creating a localized gravity well that sent the guard stumbling. Simultaneously, Aria's eyes flashed with energy as she reached out to the nearby power conduits. The lights flickered and died, plunging the checkpoint into darkness. Amidst the confusion of shouts and stumbling footsteps, Nolan and Aria slipped past undetected. Guided by Jerome Blackwood's intelligence, they made their way deeper into the ship. The air grew thick with tension as they neared their target. Finally, they stood before a massive set of reinforced doors. "This is it," Nolan murmured, his eyes scanning the intricate locking mechanism. Aria placed her hand on the control panel, her skin pulsing with absorbed energy. The panel sparked and sizzled. Then the doors slid open with a soft hiss. They entered a cavernous chamber, dominated by a colossal device that pulsed with an ominous green glow. The mineral-based weapon was far larger and more complex than they had anticipated. Nolan's brow furrowed as he assessed the situation. "We need to adapt our plan. I'll create a zero-G field around the weapon. It should make it easier for you to interface with the controls." With a gesture, the air around the weapon shimmered as gravity ceased to exist within the field. Aria floated towards the control console, her fingers dancing over the interface as she began the delicate process of disabling the weapon. Suddenly, Nolan's head snapped up. "We've got company," he warned, sensing the approach of Galactic Purist forces. He moved to the chamber's entrance, his hands outstretched as he erected a series of gravitational barriers. The air visibly distorted, creating shimmering walls that slowed the advancing enemy. Alarms blared throughout the ship, their piercing wail echoing off the metal walls. Krell's voice boomed over the intercom. "Intruders detected in Sector 7. Initiate emergency lockdown." The sound of heavy bulkheads slamming into place reverberated through the ship. Nolan gritted his teeth, sweat beading on his forehead as he strained to maintain the gravitational barriers. "Aria, we're running out of time." Her voice was tight with concentration as she responded. "It's not that simple. The weapon's mineral core is unstable. If we just shut it down, it could detonate." Nolan could hear the thundering footsteps of Purist forces growing closer. "What's the alternative?" Aria's skin began to glow brightly, pulsing with energy. I'm going to absorb the excess energy from the core. It's risky, but it's our only option. As Arya channeled the immense power of the weapon's core, Nolan found himself face-to-face with a squad of elite galactic purist guards. Their weapons charged, filling the air with the smell of ozone. Nolan's eyes narrowed in concentration as he manipulated the gravity around him. The corridor became a chaotic battlefield, with guards stumbling as they were hit by waves of increased and decreased gravity. The prolonged use of his abilities at such intensity took its toll. Nolan's body began to emit pulses of gravitational energy, warping the metal structure around him. The guard's armor creaked and buckled under the strain. Behind him, Arya disengaged from the weapon systems, her body radiating with absorbed energy. She joined Nolan in the fray, unleashing controlled bursts of energy that overloaded the purist's weapons and protective gear. As they fought their way back towards their docking point, Captain Steele's urgent voice crackled over their comms. "Nolan, Arya, the battle out here is intensifying. We've taken heavy losses. You have a limited window to escape before we're forced to retreat." Nolan and Arya exchanged a determined look. With a synchronized nod, they combined their abilities for a final push. Nolan generated a tunnel of intensified gravity, propelling them forward at incredible speeds. Arya projected an energy shield around them, deflecting the barrage of enemy fire that filled the corridors. They rounded the final corner to their shuttle's docking bay, only to find themselves face-to-face with Krell himself. The pack-led leader stood before them, encased in an advanced mineral-enhanced battlesuit that crackled with energy. Krell's augmented voice boomed through the bay. "Did you really think you could infiltrate my ship and escape unscathed?" Nolan and Arya readied themselves for the fight of their lives, their evolved abilities pushed to their limits as they faced the mastermind behind the galactic purist movement. Nolan and Arya braced themselves, their bodies humming with energy as they faced their formidable opponent. Krell's battle suit crackled with power, arcs of electricity dancing across its surface. "You've come so far, only to fail at the final hurdle," he sneered, his voice distorted by the suit's speakers. Nolan reacted first, creating a gravitational vortex that threatened to pull Krell off his feet. The pack-led leader stumbled, but quickly regained his balance, the suit systems compensating for the altered gravity. Arya unleashed a burst of absorbed energy, a blinding beam that struck Krell's chest plate. The suit shields flared, absorbing most of the impact, but Krell was pushed back several steps. "Impressive," Krell growled, "but futile." He raised his arm, and a barrage of energy projectiles erupted from his suit's weapon systems. Nolan and Arya moved in perfect synchronization, dodging and weaving through the onslaught. Nolan created localized gravity wells to deflect the projectiles, while Arya absorbed what she could, her body glowing brighter with each impact. The battle raged on, a deadly dance of gravity manipulation, energy absorption, and advanced technology. The docking bay groaned under the strain of their conflict, metal warping and buckling as Nolan's powers intensified. Arya's voice crackled over their private comm link. "Nolan, I can't contain much more energy. We need to end this now." Nolan nodded, his face set with unwavering perseverance. He reached out with his powers, creating a massive gravitational field that enveloped both Krell and their shuttle. With a Herculean effort, he altered the field's properties, making the shuttle suddenly immensely heavy. The deck plates beneath the shuttle crumpled, and the ship began to sink into the floor of the docking bay. Krell, caught in the same field, found himself being pulled towards the rapidly descending shuttle. "Now, Arya!" Nolan shouted. Arya unleashed all the energy she had absorbed, a blinding nova of power that overloaded Krell's suit and sent him flying back. The pack-led leader slammed into the far wall, his armor sparking and smoking. Without wasting a moment, Nolan and Arya sprinted for their shuttle. They leaped aboard just as it broke through the floor, the gravitational field Nolan had created propelling them away from Krell's ship at incredible speed. Alarms blared throughout the enemy vessel as they made their escape. Captain Steele's voice crackled over their comms. "We've got you covered. Get back to the flagship immediately." As they approached Captain Steele's ship, the full impact of their mission became apparent. Aria's skin pulsed with an intense, almost blinding light. Waves of heat radiated from her body, and the shuttle systems began to flicker and fail under the onslaught of excess energy. Nolan struggled to maintain control of the craft, his own powers fluctuating wildly as exhaustion set in. "Hang on, Aria," he gasped, guiding the shuttle towards the flagship's docking bay. They made a rough landing, the shuttle skidding across the deck before coming to a halt. As the airlock hissed open, Nolan and Aria stumbled out, immediately drawing the attention of the nearby crew. The intensity of Aria's condition became instantly clear. Crew members recoiled, shielding their eyes from the brilliant light emanating from her crystalline skin. The air around her shimmered with heat, and small objects began to float, caught in localized gravitational distortions. Captain Steele's voice boomed over the intercom. "Clear the docking bay immediately. This is not a drill." As the bay emptied, Dr. Elena Vasquez rushed in with a team of medical personnel. They pushed a large, complex device that hummed with terrifying energy. "Aria, Nolan," Dr. Vasquez called out, her voice steady despite the urgency of the situation. "We need to get you to the research lab now. Aria, your energy levels are critical." Nolan attempted to create a stabilizing gravitational field around Aria, but his exhaustion made his efforts erratic and ineffective. He swayed on his feet, his face pale with exertion. Dr. Vasquez's team moved swiftly, encasing Aria in a shimmering energy field projected by their device. It seemed to dampen the worst of the energy emissions, allowing them to guide her towards the exit. "Nolan, you need to come too," Dr. Vasquez insisted, noticing his deteriorating condition. As they made their way through the ship's corridors, alarms began to sound. Captain Steele's voice came over the comms again. "Dr. Vasquez, the energy readings from your team are affecting our systems. We're rerouting power to compensate, but hurry." They reached the research lab, where an array of specialized equipment awaited them. Dr. Vasquez and her team quickly connected Aria to a series of energy siphons designed to safely drain and store the excess power. As the process began, Aria's body convulsed violently. Bursts of energy exploded from her, overloading several pieces of equipment in brilliant flashes of light and smoke. Nolan pushed past the medical team, placing himself next to Aria. Despite his exhaustion, he summoned his remaining strength to create a controlled gravitational field around her. The effort was visible on his face, beads of sweat forming on his brow as he strained to contain Aria's energy outbursts. Dr. Vasquez worked frantically, adjusting the siphons and monitoring the readings. "It's not enough," she muttered, her fingers flying over the controls. "Her energy levels are still rising." At that moment, Dr. Jun burst into the lab, his tentacles waving excitedly. "I've analyzed the data from their mission," he announced. "Their physiologies have developed a unique symbiosis. We can use their connection to stabilize Aria's condition." Under Dr. Jun's guidance, Nolan intensified his gravitational field around Aria. As their energies intermingled, a visible change occurred. The erratic energy emissions from Aria's body began to synchronize with Nolan's gravitational pulses. The medical team watched in awe as the excess energy started to dissipate, absorbed and redistributed between Nolan and Aria's bodies. However, the process was clearly taking its toll on Nolan, whose condition began to visibly deteriorate. Dr. Vasquez made a split-second decision. "Prepare the mineral-based regeneration chamber," she ordered. "It's our only chance to stabilize them both." The team sprang into action, quickly modifying the chamber's settings to accommodate Nolan and Aria's unique physiologies. With great care, they transferred the couple into the chamber, sealing them inside the mineral-infused environment. As the chamber activated, bathing Nolan and Arya in a soft, pulsating light. Their bodies began to react to the mineral-rich atmosphere. The excess energy dispersed more evenly between them, while the mineral particles worked to repair the cellular damage caused by their ordeal. Outside the chamber, Dr. Vasquez, Dr. Jean, and Captain Steele watched the monitors intently. Initial readings showed promising signs of stabilization, but the long-term effects of this experimental treatment remained unknown. As the hours passed, subtle changes became apparent in Nolan and Arya's physical forms. Their bodies seemed to shimmer and shift, adapting to the intense mineral exposure and their deepened connection. The medical team detected faint, synchronized pulses of energy emanating from the chamber, hinting at further transformations yet to come. Dr. Vasquez leaned in closer to the monitoring equipment, her brow furrowed in concentration as she studied the rapidly changing data. "Their cellular structure is altering at an unprecedented rate," she murmured, her voice a mix of concern and fascination. "We may be witnessing the next stage of their evolution." Captain Steele placed a hand on Dr. Vasquez's shoulder. "Keep me updated on any developments," he said, his voice grave. "The fate of our mission, and possibly the entire conflict, may rest on their recovery." As the regeneration process continued, the ship's crew waited with nervous excitement, wondering what new abilities or challenges might emerge when Nolan and Arya finally awakened. Emerged from their mineral-induced slumber, the chamber hissed open, releasing a cloud of shimmering particles. Nolan blinked, his vision adjusting to the bright lights of the medical bay. Beside him, Arya stirred, her crystalline skin pulsing with a soft, ethereal glow. Dr. Vasquez approached, her eyes wide with a mixture of scientific curiosity and concern. "How do you feel?" she asked, running a scanner over their bodies. Nolan flexed his fingers, feeling a new surge of power coursing through him. "Different," he responded, his voice low and gravelly from disuse. "Stronger, somehow." Arya sat up, her movements fluid and graceful. "It's like I can sense the energy around us," she said, her voice filled with wonder. Dr. Jin slithered closer, his tentacles waving excitedly. "Fascinating. Your cellular structure has undergone significant changes. The mineral integration is complete, and your abilities appear to have evolved beyond our initial projections." As Nolan and Arya underwent a series of tests, the extent of their transformation became apparent. Nolan discovered he could create small, localized wormholes, transporting objects across short distances with a mere thought. Arya demonstrated an unprecedented level of energy manipulation, forming complex fields and structures with pinpoint accuracy. Captain Steele entered the medical bay, his face a mask of professional calm. "I'm glad to see you both recovered," he said. "But we have a situation. We received an urgent communication from Earth. The Galactic Council has called for an emergency summit, and Ambassador Williams Lee has requested your immediate presence." Nolan and Arya exchanged a glance, their new connection allowing them to communicate without words. They nodded in unison. "We're ready," Nolan said. The journey to Earth was tense, filled with rigorous testing and preparation. As the flagship approached their home planet, Nolan and Arya stood on the observation deck, watching the familiar blue orb grow larger. "It looks so different now," Arya murmured, her enhanced vision picking up details she'd never noticed before. Nolan placed a hand on her shoulder, feeling the energy pulse between them. "We're different now," he replied softly. As they disembarked, they were met with a mixture of awe and apprehension. Human and pack-led representatives stared openly at their subtly altered appearances, whispering among themselves. Ambassador Lee stepped forward, his face a carefully composed mask of diplomacy. "Nolan, Arya, welcome back," he said, shaking their hands. "We have much to discuss. The summit begins in 2 days, and your presence has already sparked intense debate." The next 48 hours were a whirlwind of briefings, interviews, and security preparations. General Victor Hawthorne, a stern-faced man with a reputation for thoroughness, oversaw the implementation of enhanced security measures around the summit venue. "We receive intelligence about a possible threat from anti-enhancement extremists," Hawthorne informed them during a strategy meeting. "Your abilities make you uniquely suited to assist in our security efforts. Are you willing to help?" Nolan and Arya agreed without hesitation. As they patrolled the perimeter of the summit venue, their enhanced senses on high alert, they could feel the tension in the air. Protesters from various factions had gathered, their chants and shouts creating a cacophony of conflicting ideologies. Inside the council chambers, the atmosphere was equally charged. Delegates from across the galaxy argued passionately about the implications of mineral enhancement technology. Nolan and Arya found themselves at the center of attention, their very existence serving as a lightning rod for the debate. As the summit progressed, a breakthrough seemed imminent. The proposal for a galactic mineral research and regulation agency gained traction, with Nolan and Arya proposed as key advisors. But just as hope began to rise, chaos erupted. A series of explosions rocked the building, shattering windows and sending delegates scrambling for cover. Through the smoke and debris, Nolan spotted a group of heavily armed extremists storming the council chambers. "Arya!" he shouted, reaching out with his mind. Their connection hummed to life, and they moved as one. Nolan created a series of micro-wormholes, evacuating civilians and trapping attackers in temporal loops. Arya generated shimmering energy shields, deflecting weapons fire and containing the worst of the explosions. As they fought, their movements synchronized perfectly. Nolan would open a wormhole, and Arya would send a burst of energy through it, striking an attacker from an impossible angle. Arya would create a force field, and Nolan would manipulate gravity within it, incapacitating enemies without harm. The battle raged on, with Nolan and Arya at its center, their enhanced abilities turning the tide against the extremists. As the last attacker fell, silence descended upon the chamber. Ambassador Lee emerged from behind an overturned table, his suit covered in dust, but his eyes shining with grit. "The council will reconvene immediately," he announced. "We cannot let terror dictate our future." As the delegates filed back into the chamber, Nolan and Arya stood guard, their bodies still humming with energy. They watched as the vote for the GMRRA proposal was cast, passing with overwhelming support. In the aftermath, as the dust settled and the implications of the day's events began to sink in, Nolan and Arya found themselves thrust into a new role. They were no longer just test subjects or soldiers, but key figures in shaping the future of galactic policy. "The GMRRA task force needs leaders," Ambassador Lee told them, his voice weary but filled with hope. "People who understand both the potential and the risks of this technology. Will you accept this responsibility?" Nolan looked at Arya, feeling the weight of the decision. They had come so far, changed so much. Yet the journey, it seemed, was just getting started. Arya nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. "We're ready," she said, echoing Nolan's words from what felt like a lifetime ago. As they prepared to face this new challenge, Nolan and Arya knew that the path ahead would be fraught with difficulties. The opposition to mineral enhancement technology remained strong, and the political landscape was more complex than ever. But as they stood together, their bodies resonating with shared energy and purpose, they felt ready to face whatever came next. The galaxy was changing, and they would be at the forefront of that change, for better or worse. For worse, the weight of their new responsibilities settled upon them as they prepared to shape the future of mineral enhancement technology. In the weeks following the summit, Nolan and Arya found themselves thrust into the heart of the newly formed Galactic Mineral Research and Regulation Agency. Their first major project materialized quickly, the establishment of a secure research facility on a remote Earth colony, designated as Outpost Omega. As their ship descended through the atmosphere of the colony world, Arya gazed out the viewport, her enhanced vision picking up minute details of the landscape below. "It's so isolated," she murmured, noting the vast stretches of untamed wilderness surrounding the gleaming facility. Nolan nodded, his mind already processing the tactical advantages and challenges of the location. "Perfect for our needs. We can conduct our research without interference." Upon landing, they were greeted by a familiar face, Dr. Marcus Blackwood, Jerome's estranged brother. His presence sent a ripple of unease through Nolan and Arya. "Welcome to Outpost Omega," Dr. Blackwood said, his voice smooth and professional. "I trust our collaboration will be fruitful." Nolan's eyes narrowed slightly. "Dr. Blackwood, I wasn't aware you'd be joining us." "The GMRRA recruited me for my expertise in xenobiology," Blackwood explained, leading them towards the main complex. "My work with the evolutionary vanguard, while controversial, has provided invaluable insights into interspecies adaptations." Arya exchanged a quick glance with Nolan, their shared apprehension palpable through their connection. The mention of the evolutionary vanguard, a group known for its radical stance on genetic manipulation, set them on edge. As they toured the facility, Dr. Blackwood detailed the ongoing research. "We've made significant progress in stabilizing the mineral enhancement process for non-hybrid individuals," he explained, gesturing to a series of holographic displays. "Our goal is to allow for controlled, gradual enhancements that minimize the risk of sudden mutations." The implications of this breakthrough were not lost on Nolan and Arya. As news spread, interest in mineral enhancement technology skyrocketed. The GMRRA implemented a rigorous screening process for volunteers, and soon the first group of test subjects arrived at Outpost Omega. Weeks passed in a flurry of activity. Nolan and Arya divided their time between overseeing the trials, refining their own abilities, and navigating the complex political landscape surrounding their work. The atmosphere in the facility was charged with excitement and tension. Then, without warning, alarms blared throughout the complex. Nolan and Arya raced to the medical bay, where they found chaos unfolding. Jack Ryder, a former military officer and one of the human test subjects, was at the center of the commotion. His body crackled with visible energy, emitting powerful electromagnetic pulses that sent equipment haywire. "His enhancement process has accelerated beyond our projections," Dr. Blackwood shouted over the din. "We can't stabilize him." Nolan acted instinctively, creating a localized gravity well around Ryder to contain the energy emissions. Arya joined him, her hands outstretched as she manipulated the chaotic energy fields surrounding the man. Together, they worked in perfect synchronization. Nolan's micro-wormholes redirected excess energy, while Arya's precise control helped to dampen the electromagnetic pulses. Minutes stretched into hours as they fought to stabilize Ryder's condition. Finally, the crisis passed. Ryder lay unconscious but stable, his body no longer emitting dangerous levels of energy. The medical team swarmed in, running diagnostics and administering treatment. Dr. Blackwood approached Nolan and Arya, his face etched with concern. "This incident will have repercussions. We need to reassess our protocols." Before they could respond, a priority communication came through. Ambassador Lee's holographic form materialized before them, his expression grave. "We've received reports of the incident," he said without preamble. "Anti-enhancement groups are already using this as propaganda. The Galactic Council is sending observers to assess the situation." Nolan's eyes hardened. "We'll be ready for them, Ambassador. Our work here is too important to abandon." As the call ended, Arya turned to Nolan, her eyes reflecting the drive they both felt. "We knew there would be challenges," she said softly, "but we can't back down now." Nolan nodded, his mind already racing with plans and contingencies. The arrival of the Galactic Council observers would complicate matters, but it also presented an opportunity to showcase the potential of their work. As they left the medical bay, alarms suddenly blared once again. This time, however, the threat came from outside. A security officer rushed up to them, his face pale. "Unidentified ship approaching at high speed," he reported breathlessly. "Energy signature matches known galactic purist vessels." Nolan and Arya exchanged a quick glance, their bodies tensing for action. The respite they had hoped for after stabilizing Ryder had vanished in an instant. Now, they faced a new and potentially deadly threat to everything they had worked for. Without hesitation, they moved towards the command center, their enhanced senses already reaching out to assess the incoming danger. As they ran, Nolan created a series of micro wormholes throughout the facility, allowing for instant communication and rapid deployment of security forces. Arya's mind raced, formulating energy barrier configurations to reinforce vulnerable areas of the outpost. They burst into the command center, immediately taking charge of the situation. "Status report," Nolan barked, his eyes scanning the holographic displays showing the approaching vessel. A technician responded, her voice tight with tension. "The ship has bypassed our early warning systems. It's using technology we've never seen before in galactic purist vessels." Arya focused on the tactical display, her enhanced vision picking up details others might miss. "Their approach vector suggests they're aiming for our main research hub," she observed. As they prepared to coordinate the outpost defenses, a chilling message crackled through the communication system. A familiar voice, one they had hoped never to hear again, filled the room. "This is Krell," the pack-led leader of the Galactic Purists announced, his tone dripping with malice. "Your abomination ends today. Prepare for annihilation." The command center fell silent for a moment as the implications of Krell's survival sank in. Then, Nolan's voice cut through the tension, firm and resolute. "Battle stations, everyone. This is what we prepared for. Arya, coordinate with Dr. Blackwood to secure the research data. I'll oversee our defensive measures." As the inhabitants of Outpost Omega scrambled to their positions, Nolan and Arya shared a brief, intense look. Their connection hummed with shared purpose and persistence. Whatever Krell had planned, they would face it together, defending not just the outpost, but the future of mineral enhancement technology and interspecies cooperation. The Galactic Purist ship loomed ever closer on the tactical displays, its weapon systems powering up. Nolan and Arya stood at the heart of Outpost Omega's defenses, ready to meet the coming storm head-on. The Galactic Purist ship filled the tactical displays, its weapon systems glowing ominously as they powered up. Nolan's voice cut through the tension in the command center. "Activate all shield generators and weapon systems. Now!" As alarms blared throughout the facility, Nolan and Arya sprang into action. They moved in perfect synchronization, their enhanced abilities working in tandem to fortify Outpost Omega's defenses. Nolan's hands moved in intricate patterns as he manipulated gravity, creating localized wells around the facility's most vulnerable points. "Arya, focus on energy barriers for the research hub," he called out, his voice steady despite the imminent threat. Arya nodded, her eyes gleaming with concentration as she generated shimmering fields of energy. The air crackled with power as her barriers sprang to life, enveloping critical sections of the outpost. Suddenly, the sky lit up with a barrage of mineral-based projectiles. The advanced weapons slammed into Outpost Omega's outer structures, their impacts reverberating through the facility. Nolan gritted his teeth as he felt the strain of maintaining his gravity wells against the onslaught. "These aren't standard weapons," Arya shouted over the din of the attack. Her energy barriers flickered under the assault, but held firm. "They're designed to penetrate our defenses." As chunks of debris rained down from damaged sections of the outpost, Dr. Marcus Blackwood's voice crackled over the comm system. "Nolan, Arya, I'm securing the research data and evacuating non-essential personnel to the underground bunker. We need more time." Nolan's reply was cut short as a figure burst into the command center. It was Jack Ryder, his body still crackling with residual electromagnetic energy from his earlier incident. "Let me help," he said, his eyes wild but determined. "I can disrupt their targeting systems." Arya exchanged a quick glance with Nolan. They both knew the risks of allowing an unstable, enhanced individual into the fight, but the desperation of their situation was clear. "All right, Ryder," Nolan agreed, his voice taut. "But stay close to us. We'll cover you." The trio made their way to an observation deck with a clear view of Krell's approaching ship. Ryder stepped forward, his hands outstretched as he focused his electromagnetic abilities. Arcs of energy leapt from his fingertips, lancing out towards the purest vessel. The effect was immediate. The incoming barrage faltered, the mineral-based projectiles veering off course as Ryder's electromagnetic pulses played havoc with their guidance systems. A commotion from behind caught Arya's attention. She turned to see a group of alarmed-looking aliens, the Galactic Council observers, being hurried through the corridor by security personnel. "Nola, the observers," she called out. Without hesitation, Nolan created a series of short-range wormholes, providing a safe passage for the observers to a secure location deeper within the facility. As the last observer disappeared through a shimmering portal, a new threat emerged. The tactical displays showed multiple smaller craft detaching from Krell's ship. "Incoming!" Arya shouted. "They're landing troops on the outer platforms." Nolan's eyes narrowed as he assessed the situation. "Galactic Purist shock troops. We need to repel them before they breach the facility." Together, Nolan and Arya raced towards the landing platforms, leaving Ryder to continue his electromagnetic assault on the main ship. As they arrived, they were met with a scene of chaos. Security forces exchanged fire with Purist troops clad in sleek, mineral-enhanced battle suits. Arya's eyes widened as she observed the invaders. "Their suits. They're using our own technology against us." Nolan nodded grimly. "Then let's show them what the real thing can do." They plunged into the fray, their enhanced abilities in full display. Nolan manipulated gravity to send Purist troops flying, while Arya targeted their suits with precision energy blasts. As the battle raged on, Arya made a crucial discovery. "Nolan," she called out, her voice urgent. "My energy absorption. It's interfering with their suits." Understanding dawned on Nolan's face. "Perfect. You disable them. I'll incapacitate them." Working in tandem, they began to systematically neutralize the Purist forces. Arya's energy manipulation disrupted the power systems of the enemy suits, leaving the troops vulnerable to Nolan's gravity wells. As the tide of the ground assault turned, a bone-chilling announcement echoed across the battlefield. Krell's voice, filled with maniacal willpower, boomed from his ship's external speakers. "If we cannot have this abomination, no one will. Prepare for your annihilation." The massive Purist vessel began to move, its engines flaring as it adjusted its trajectory. Horror dawned on Nolan and Arya as they realized Krell's intent, a kamikaze run straight into the heart of Outpost Omega. "We have to stop it," Arya said, her voice filled with willpower. Nolan nodded, his mind already formulating a plan. Together, like we've never done before. They clasped hands, their connection humming with shared purpose and power. As one, they reached out with their abilities, pushing them to limits they had never before attempted. Nolan created a massive gravitational field around the incoming ship, while Arya generated an energy vortex to counter its momentum. The strain was immediate and intense. Their bodies began to emit pulses of visible energy as they poured every ounce of their enhanced abilities into the effort. Krell's ship entered the gravitational field and immediately began to break apart under the immense forces. Fragments of the vessel scattered, each caught in the swirling vortex of energy and gravity. As Nolan and Arya fought to maintain their concentration, They saw a small object eject from the disintegrating ship, an escape pod. Before they could react, a familiar electromagnetic pulse lanced out from the outpost, striking the pod and sending it careening towards one of the landing pads. Ryder had seen the escape attempt and acted on his own initiative. Security forces swarmed the crash site, quickly apprehending the dazed but still defiant Krell. With the immediate threat neutralized, Nolan and Aria's enhanced bodies finally gave out. They collapsed to the ground, their forms still radiating residual energy from their incredible exertion. As medical teams rushed to their aid and the dust of battle began to settle, the full impact of what had transpired started to sink in. The defense of Outpost Omega had been successful, but at what cost? And what new challenges would arise in the wake of this unprecedented display of mineral-enhanced power? Lying on the ground, their hands still clasped together, Nolan and Aria shared a look of exhausted triumph tinged with uncertainty. They had faced their greatest test yet, but somehow they both knew that this was only the beginning. Beginning of this, as Nolan and Aria soon discovered. Their bodies still thrummed with residual energy as medical teams rushed to their aid, carefully lifting them onto stretchers. Dr. Marcus Blackwood appeared at their side, his face a mix of concern and excitement. "We need to get you both to the medical bay immediately," he said, his voice urgent. "Your physiological readings are off the charts." As they were whisked through the corridors of Outpost Omega, Nolan and Aria remained conscious but exhausted. The strain of their unprecedented display of power had pushed their enhanced bodies to the limit. In the medical bay, a team of experts led by Dr. Blackwood initiated a comprehensive battery of tests. Nolan and Aria found themselves surrounded by a dizzying array of advanced diagnostic equipment, much of it designed specifically for monitoring mineral-enhanced individuals. "Fascinating," Dr. Blackwood muttered as he studied a holographic display of Nolan's neural activity. "The gravitational manipulation centers in your brain have undergone significant changes. It appears you've developed the ability to create stable micro-wormholes." Nolan's eyes widened at this revelation. "Micro-wormholes? How is that possible?" Before Dr. Blackwood could respond, another scientist called out from across the room. "Dr. Blackwood, you need to see this. Aria's energy absorption capabilities have evolved exponentially." Aria, still connected to various monitoring devices, focused on the scientist's words. "Evolved how?" she asked, her voice filled with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Dr. Blackwood moved to examine the data on Aria's condition. "It seems you can now manipulate and redirect various forms of energy with incredible precision," he explained, his tone filled with awe. "The potential applications of this ability are, well, they're revolutionary." As the medical team continued their analysis, Nolan and Aria exchanged a look of shared amazement and uncertainty. Their enhanced abilities had always set them apart, but this latest development pushed the boundaries of what they thought possible. Days passed as they underwent further tests and began the process of recovery. The GMRRA, recognizing the significance of these advancements, fast-tracked research into practical applications of their new abilities. One afternoon, as Nolan and Aria were discussing the implications of their evolving powers, an alert sounded throughout the facility. They rushed to the command center, where they found a grim-faced security officer waiting for them. "We've completed the initial interrogation of Krell," the officer reported. "He's revealed critical intelligence about remaining galactic purist cells across the galaxy." Nolan's expression hardened. "We need to act on this information immediately," he said, turning to Aria. "Are you up for it?" Aria nodded, her eyes gleaming with tenacity. "Absolutely. Where do we start?" The answer came in the form of a mission briefing. A hidden galactic purist base had been identified on a remote asteroid in the Zeta Reticuli system. With their unique abilities, Nolan and Aria were the perfect candidates to lead the infiltration. As they prepared for the mission, Nolan focused on honing his newfound micro-wormhole ability. He practiced creating small, stable portals between different sections of Outpost Omega, each attempt growing more precise. Arya, meanwhile, worked on fine-tuning her energy manipulation skills. She found she could now sense and interact with even the most subtle energy fields, allowing her to affect electronic systems with unprecedented accuracy. The day of the mission arrived, and Nolan and Arya stood ready in the launch bay. With a shared nod of confidence, Nolan opened a micro-wormhole directly into the heart of the Purist base. They stepped through, emerging in a dimly lit corridor. Arya immediately went to work, her hands moving in intricate patterns as she interfaced with the base's energy systems. Alarms that would have normally blared remained silent. Security cameras went dark, and reinforced doors silently slid open. Nolan led the way through the facility, using his gravity manipulation to incapacitate any Purist guards they encountered. The operation moved with clockwork precision, catching the extremists completely off guard. Within hours, several high-ranking Purist officials were in custody, and a cache of advanced mineral-based weaponry had been secured. As Nolan and Arya supervised the final stages of the raid, they couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in how seamlessly their new abilities had integrated into their work. Their success did not go unnoticed. Upon their return to Earth, they were summoned to a meeting with Ambassador Williams Lee. The diplomat's office overlooked a bustling spaceport, a constant reminder of humanity's growing role in galactic affairs. "Your recent mission was impressive," Ambassador Lee began, his tone serious despite the praise. "But it's raised concerns among our interstellar allies. There are fears that humanity may be gaining an unfair advantage through mineral enhancement." Nolan leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "What do you propose, Ambassador?" Lee's expression softened slightly. "We need you two to serve as goodwill ambassadors. Show our allies the peaceful applications of your abilities. Promote cooperation in mineral research. Can you do that?" Arya and Nolan exchanged a glance, a silent conversation passing between them. After a moment, Arya spoke for both of them. "We're ready to do our part, Ambassador. Where do we start?" The answer came in the form of an itinerary. Their first stop would be the Pakled homeworld, a planet rich in mineral resources, but technologically behind many of its galactic neighbors. As their ship entered Pakled orbit, Nolan and Arya prepared for their first diplomatic challenge. They would need to demonstrate the benefits of mineral enhancement without appearing threatening or condescending to their hosts. The Pakled capital city sprawled below them, a maze of interconnected mining operations and industrial complexes. As they disembarked, they were greeted by a delegation of Pakled officials, their faces a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Nolan stepped forward, extending a hand in greeting. "We come in peace and friendship," he began, his voice calm and reassuring. "We're here to show you how our abilities can be used to help, not harm." The lead Pakled, a stocky figure with deep-set eyes, regarded them warily. "You make us strong?" he asked, his simple language belying the complexity of the situation. Arya smiled warmly. "We hope to make all of us stronger together," she replied. "May we show you." With the Pakled's cautious agreement, Nolan and Arya set to work. Their first task was to assist with a complex mining operation that had stalled due to an unstable planetary core. Nolan approached the mining site, his eyes closed in concentration. Slowly, he extended his hands, creating a network of micro-wormholes throughout the unstable area. Through these spatial shortcuts, valuable resources could be extracted without endangering the miners or exacerbating the core's instability. The Pakles watched in awe as tons of precious minerals were safely transported to the surface in a matter of hours, a process that would have taken weeks using conventional methods. Arya, meanwhile, turned her attention to the planet's struggling power grid. Using her enhanced energy manipulation abilities, she began to optimize the flow of power throughout the city. Inefficiencies were eliminated, waste was reduced, and the entire system began to hum with newfound efficiency. As the day progressed, The initial wariness of the pack-led officials gave way to genuine interest and excitement. They peppered Nolan and Arya with questions about mineral enhancement and its potential applications for their world. By the time the Earth diplomats prepared to depart, the atmosphere had transformed. The lead pack-led approached them, his earlier suspicion replaced by a look of cautious hope. "You make us strong," he said, this time a statement rather than a question. "We learn together?" Nolan nodded, a sense of accomplishment warming his chest. "That's right," he replied. "We'll learn and grow stronger together." As their ship lifted off from the pack-led homeworld, Nolan and Arya felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had taken the first step in showing the galaxy the true potential of mineral enhancement technology. But as they set course for their next destination, a Zygon colony facing its own set of challenges, they knew their journey was not nearly finished. The galaxy was vast, and the path to acceptance and understanding would be long and filled with unexpected hurdles. Nolan reached out, taking Arya's hand in his own. As their fingers intertwined, a subtle pulse of energy passed between them, a reminder of the unique bond they shared. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, armed with their enhanced abilities and unwavering persistence to forge a better future for all species. As Nolan and Arya's ship entered the depths of space, their thoughts turned to the challenges that lay ahead. However, their contemplation was cut short by an urgent incoming transmission from GMRRA headquarters. Priority message for agents Nolan and Arya announced the ship's AI. "Patching through now." The holographic display flickered to life, revealing the stern face of Director Helena Cho. "Agents, we have a situation that requires your immediate attention. Our long-range sensors have detected an anomaly in Sector Gamma 9. It appears to be an unstable mineral deposit of unprecedented size." Nolan leaned forward, his interest piqued. "How unstable are we talking, Director?" "Critically," Cho replied, her expression grim. "If left unchecked, it could trigger a chain reaction that would devastate several nearby star systems. We need you to investigate and, if possible, stabilize the deposit." Arya nodded, her mind already racing with potential strategies. "We're on it, Director. Sending course correction now." As they altered their trajectory, a second transmission came through. Dr. Marcus Blackwood's face appeared alongside Director Cho's. "Nolan, Arya," he began, his voice tinged with excitement and concern. "We received a communication from an unknown alien species. They claim to be the original creators of the enhancement minerals." The couple exchanged startled glances. This was unprecedented. "They call themselves the progenitors," Cho continued. "They requested a meeting with our leading mineral enhancement researchers. Given your unique abilities and experience, we want you two to lead this diplomatic mission." "What about the unstable deposit?" Nolan asked, his brow furrowed. "The progenitors' coordinates are actually in the same sector," Blackwood explained. "We believe their advanced knowledge might be crucial in addressing the instability." Within hours, their ship had been retrofitted with Nolan's micro-wormhole technology, allowing for faster-than-light travel. Dr. Blackwood and a team of GMRRA scientists joined them aboard the vessel, now designated as an advanced research platform. As they traversed a vast expanse of space, Dr. Blackwood continued his ongoing study of Nolan and Arya's physiology. His monitoring equipment beeped softly as he reviewed the latest data. "Fascinating," he murmured, adjusting his glasses. "Your energy patterns are showing increased synchronization. It's as if your abilities are harmonizing on a quantum level." Before either Nolan or Arya could respond, the ship's AI announced their arrival at the designated coordinates. The view outside the ship's windows left them all speechless. A massive structure floated in the void, its form defying conventional architecture. Crystalline formations intertwined in impossible geometries, pulsing with energy signatures remarkably similar to those of enhancement minerals. As they approached, a section of the structure shifted, revealing a docking bay. The ship glided in smoothly, guided by an unseen force. The moment they stepped off the ship, Nolan and Arya felt a change in the air. The very atmosphere seemed charged with potential energy. Suddenly, beings of pure light materialized before them. The progenitors stood tall, their crystalline bodies shimmering with bioluminescence. They pulsed with energy, communicating in a language beyond sound. To everyone's surprise, Arya's eyes widened in understanding. I can interpret them," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "They're welcoming us to their nexus." As Arya translated, the progenitors revealed the true nature of the enhancement minerals. They spoke of a grand experiment spanning millions of years, seeding galaxies with these minerals to guide the evolution of countless species. However, their tone shifted to one of concern as they discussed recent developments. "They're worried about how quickly we've advanced our mineral enhancement technology," Arya explained, "especially humans and the Packolds." The lead progenitor, a being of swirling blue and silver light, stepped forward. Through Arya, it proposed a collaborative effort to ensure responsible development of mineral enhancement across the galaxy. As a gesture of goodwill, the progenitor extended a crystalline tendril towards Nolan and Arya. The moment it made contact, a flood of advanced knowledge on mineral manipulation surged through their minds. The progenitor's attention suddenly focused intently on Nolan and Arya. They communicated rapidly, their energy pulses growing more excited. "They say our physiological bond is unique," Arya translated, her voice trembling slightly. "They believe we might be key to unlocking a higher level of mineral enhancement, one that could bridge organic life and mineral consciousness." Nolan squeezed Arya's hand, both thrilled and apprehensive. What would that entail? The answer came through another surge of information. The procedure would be risky, irreversibly altering their physiology. But the potential benefits were staggering. As they contemplated this revelation, alarms blared throughout the structure. The progenitor's energy patterns shifted to sharp, urgent pulses. Long-range sensors had detected a massive fleet approaching, Arya translated, her face paling. "It's the galactic purists. They must have tracked us using Krell's intel." Nolan's eyes hardened. "How long do we have?" "Minutes," Arya replied, "and they're armed with some kind of reverse-engineered progenitor tech." As the first wave of purist ships appeared on the horizon, Nolan and Arya exchanged a determined look. They had faced challenges before, but nothing like this. The fate of not just humanity, but potentially the entire galaxy, now rested in their hands. The approaching purist fleet left no time for indecision. "We need to act now," Nolan said, his voice resolute. "But first, we need a moment to regroup." Arya nodded, understanding the unspoken request. They turned to the lead progenitor, its crystalline form pulsing with urgency. "We require a brief respite to formulate a strategy," Arya communicated. "Is there a secure area where we can convene?" The progenitor's form shimmered in response, and a section of the structure's wall dissolved, revealing a private chamber. Nolan and Arya quickly made their way inside, the wall reforming behind them. As the door sealed, Nolan let out a deep breath, his shoulders sagging slightly. "This is bigger than anything we've faced before, Arya. We need to think this through carefully." Arya reached out, taking his hand. The familiar surge of energy passed between them, comforting and energizing. "We've come so far, Nolan. Remember where we started?" Their eyes met, and for a moment, they were transported back to that human hospital where it all began. The alien girl who laughed at Earth, and the man whose life was forever changed by a chance encounter. Their reminiscence was cut short by a sudden alert from their communication devices. Dr. Elena Vasquez's face appeared on the holographic display, her expression grave. "Nolan, Arya, we have a critical situation," she began without preamble. "The unstable mineral deposit you were originally sent to investigate has become highly volatile. It's emitting powerful energy waves that are causing widespread, uncontrolled enhancements across multiple species in the affected sector." Nolan's brow furrowed. "How bad is it, Elena?" "We're seeing reports of individuals suddenly developing abilities they can't control. It's causing chaos and panic across several systems," Elena replied, her voice tight with concern. Arya's eyes widened as she processed the implications. "We need to act fast. This could destabilize the entire region if left unchecked." Nolan nodded, his mind racing. "We can't ignore this, even with the purest threat. But maybe—" He trailed off, a plan forming in his mind. "What are you thinking?" Arya asked, recognizing the look in his eyes. "We approached the progenitors," Nolan said, his voice gaining confidence. "We combine their advanced knowledge with our abilities. It might be our best shot at addressing both crises simultaneously." Without another word, they exited the chamber, finding the progenitors waiting expectantly. Arya stepped forward, her body language conveying the urgency of their situation. "We have a proposal," she began, her voice clear and steady. "There's an unstable mineral deposit causing uncontrolled enhancements in a nearby sector. We believe that by combining your knowledge with our abilities, we can stabilize the deposit and potentially find a solution to the approaching purest threat." The progenitors' forms pulsed rapidly, their crystalline structures shifting in complex patterns. After a moment that felt like an eternity, the lead progenitor extended a tendril of energy towards them. Arya translated the response, her voice tinged with excitement. "They agree. They're willing to share their technology and knowledge to address this crisis." With practiced efficiency, Nolan and Arya worked alongside the progenitors to formulate a plan. Using the advanced alien technology, Nolan began to construct a massive wormhole that would transport them directly to the affected sector. As the wormhole stabilized, Dr. Blackwood and his team prepared the necessary equipment. The progenitors provided energy conduits and crystalline devices that pulse with unfamiliar power. "We're ready," Nolan announced, his hand intertwined with Arya's. "Let's do this." They stepped through the wormhole, emerging into a scene of chaos. The affected sector was awash with erratic energy patterns, and they could see individuals of various species struggling with newly acquired, uncontrolled abilities. Arya immediately began to absorb the excess energy permeating the area, her body glowing with the influx of power. Nolan focused his gravity manipulation abilities, containing the most volatile reactions and preventing further spread of the unstable energy. As they worked, it became clear that their individual efforts, while effective, were not enough to fully stabilize the massive mineral deposit at the heart of the crisis. Nolan and Arya exchanged a look of understanding. "We need to try something new," Nolan said, his voice barely audible over the chaos around them. Arya nodded, her eyes shining with drive. "A full merger of our abilities. It's risky, but it might be our only chance." The progenitors, sensing their intent, quickly arranged the energy conduits they had brought, forming a circle around Nolan and Arya. As the couple stood at the center, they reached out to each other, their fingers intertwining. A brilliant light began to emanate from their joined hands, growing in intensity until it enveloped their entire bodies. The air around them crackled with energy as their individual forms began to blur and merge. In a spectacular display of light and power, Nolan and Arya's separate bodies dissolved into a single, luminous entity. This new being pulsed with the combined strength of their abilities, exerting precise control over gravity, energy, and the very fabric of space-time. The merged Nolan-Arya entity extended its influence over the unstable mineral deposit. With a level of control and precision that neither could have achieved individually, they began to reshape the deposit's molecular structure, aligning it with the stable form found in controlled enhancement procedures. As they worked, waves of stabilizing energy rippled outward from the entity, washing over the affected sector. Individuals who had been struggling with uncontrolled abilities suddenly found themselves able to manage their enhancements. Partial enhancements were either completed safely or gently reversed. The chaos that had engulfed the sector began to subside, replaced by a sense of awe and wonder at the display of power before them. The merged entity continued its work, meticulously stabilizing every trace of the volatile mineral energy. As the final remnants of instability faded away, the Nolan-Aria entity began to separate back into their individual forms. The process was gradual, their bodies slowly reforming as the brilliant light receded. When it was complete, Nolan and Aria stood hand in hand, their bodies shimmering with residual energy. They looked at each other, eyes wide with the realization of what they had just accomplished. That was... Nolan began, struggling to find the words. Incredible, Aria finished, a smile spreading across her face. As they took in their surroundings, they realized that their merger had done more than just stabilize the mineral deposit. They could feel a new depth to their connection, a permanent telepathic bond that allowed them to share thoughts and emotions effortlessly. Moreover, they found that they could now seamlessly combine their powers at will, without the need for the full physical merger. It was as if their abilities had evolved, becoming more refined and powerful. The progenitors approached, their crystalline forms pulsing with what seemed to be excitement. Through their newly enhanced abilities, Nolan and Aria could now understand their complex energy-based communication without the need for translation. You have achieved something unprecedented, the lead progenitor communicated. This union of abilities opens new possibilities for the application of mineral enhancement technology. As they absorbed this information, a new alert came through their communication devices. The Purist fleet, which had been approaching the progenitor structure, had changed course. They were now heading directly for the sector that had just been stabilized. Nolan and Aria exchanged a determined look. Their work was just a beginning, but with their newly evolved abilities and the support of the progenitors, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. We need to prepare, Nolan said, his voice steady. The Purists are coming, and we're the only ones who can stop them. Aria nodded, her hand tightening around Nolan's. Together, she said, her voice filled with persistence. As they began to formulate their plan, the stabilized sector behind them buzzed with activity. Representatives from various affected species were gathering, eager to understand what had happened and to offer their support. The merged experience had given Nolan and Aria a new perspective on the potential of mineral enhancement technology. As they prepared to face the Purist threat, they knew that the future of not just humanity, but the entire galactic community would be shaped by the outcome of this impending confrontation.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.